Thanks for being here. Subscribe to Cheating Stories Best, so you don't miss new stories.
There are two interesting stories waiting for you today right now.
A husband saw his wives get out of one man's brightly colored car and he immediately realized that. Today's story with a similar plot. Enjoy watching it. As you walked away from me, looking over your shoulder, you said, "I'll see you in the morning, it's just one night." You did this on purpose to humiliate me in front of your friends. You chose him over me on the day you organized for us, and your friends just sat and smiled. We were in our first meeting with the advisor, and he had just asked me how I felt. The advisor warned me, saying, "I'll play devil's advocate." He looked at Linda and asked, "Did you want to humiliate your husband?" I thought it was a strange question, but I really haven't been able to think straight since that night. She looked at me, nodded, and said, "No, I didn't mean to humiliate you. It was just so you knew I'd be back in the morning." It didn't look like that from where I sat, with my wife walking away, arm in arm with another man. Look at it from my point of view for once. She looked down at her lap, then looked up at me. I tried, and I'm so ashamed of what I did. Since the incident, we have hardly spoken. I only spoke to her about the most necessary things. Giving her the cold shoulder would be too soft. I was in deep silence, but I tried to talk to her when the children were around, trying to give them some kind of normality, and I was terribly unsuccessful. I completely ignored her whenever I could. We slept in the same bed because there were no others. If she touched me at night, I got up and left. If I had a choice, she would sleep in another bed. Having a night with him, she left our marital bed. My name is Dr. John Campbell. You can call me John, Dr. John, or whatever you like, Linda said. "I'll call you John," I replied. Dr. Campbell, he looked at me and said, "I'll let Linda begin." "Jim, do you mind?" "It's Mr. Northover." "I don't care," I said. I took out my phone and put it on the table. I turned on the recording. "I hope this isn't being recorded," said Dr. Campbell. "It's being recorded, and if you object, I'll leave now," I said, standing up. Linda winced. "Please let him, he has the right to, after what I did." The doctor nodded his head, and I sat back down. I talked to my lawyer for a long time, and she convinced me that this is what I need to do, at least for the sake of the children. I don't know where Linda found this consultant, and I don't care. It won't change the final outcome, but it may help me cope with the kids. I was worried about the children. If I couldn't cope, it would affect them. I knew I needed help, and I agreed to it. I had a plan. I will stay married until Sean turns 18 or leaves home first. I'm not impressed yet, but I didn't intend to be. I even refused to shake hands when we arrived. She started first, begging me that she would fix everything. It was just one night. She apologized for what happened. It was wrong. She admitted that she was weak, selfish, and thought she could fix everything. No, you didn't realize how far this would go, I thought to myself. When Linda finished, she cried, and there was nothing there that I hadn't heard before. Dr. Campbell looked at me. "It's your turn, Jim. Tell me how you feel and how you think you can overcome this." "Overcome now?" He showed his true colors. It was my fault that she changed. I looked at him and said, "I think you mean Mr. Northover." "Sorry, Jim. Mr. Northover." I looked at her. "Okay, in no particular order, let's go." That was probably the longest sentence I'd spoken to her since the Sunday she came home a little over a week ago. It might help if you came back at a reasonable time, like 7 or 8 in the morning, and by taxi or Uber, without driving up in his flashy sports car at almost 1 a.m., and not getting out of the car while he held the door for you. Then I walked along the path in that red dress that you bought for me. He wanted to rub it in my face. I was with your woman, and there's nothing you can do about it because I'm a star and I have a big, luxurious, expensive car. So not only did you betray me in front of all your friends, but you also let him humiliate me in front of the whole street. You came back at the busiest time of the day, only to rub it in my face even more. The ice cream man's car was there with a line of our neighbors. He held the door for you, and you let him help you out. At least he kissed you on the cheek, which you offered. and you walked past the line at the ice cream man's car with a smug smile on your face, and everyone took out their cameras, filming my humiliation as you got out of that guy's car. All this instantly ended up on the internet. No, it wasn't like that. I didn't even notice the ice cream man's car. I was thinking about you, Linda said through tears. Shut up. You already said it. Now it's my turn, I said. I thought he was going to scold me for being rude to Linda, but he didn't. He raised his hand and softly said to Linda, he needs time. You will have a chance to answer him. You said you'd see me in the morning, but it wasn't in the morning, was it? It was in the afternoon. But, honey, I love you, Linda whispered. I ignored it. How can I trust you when you left? You said it was just one night. I love you. How can you say I love you and then leave with another man? I didn't even know if you would come back to me at all, and now I wish you wouldn't. When you left, I got up to follow you, but Dee was standing in front of me. It's just one night, she'll be back in the morning, she told me. I tried to push past her, then I felt someone grab me. I had to use my heels and elbows to free myself. I pushed past Dee, got to the middle of the dance floor, and suddenly two of his friends were in front of me with their hands up to stop me. Just let me go. It's just for one night, and we will stop you, they told me. I tried to push past them, but they pushed me back. I looked at the bouncers. They looked sad, shook their heads, and apparently, this wasn't the first time he'd done this. I called you, but the phone went straight to voicemail. You must have turned it off. How would I contact you if something happened to the children? So you abandoned the children too. I tried to fight for you, but everyone got in my way. Now I was in full swing and everything came out. I can't touch that man because if anything happens to him, the first person the police will call will be me. And when they find out it's not me, they'll start looking for the next husband of the wife he slept with, and so on. When they don't find anyone, they will come back and start all over again. So I have to make sure that I have an alibi for every minute of every day. I have cameras all over the house so you can see where I am at any time. I even have an action camera with a tracker in the car watching me when I drive. I know there are video cameras at work that record people coming and going. So you see, I'm at risk 24/7, 365 days a year, and I have to defend myself so that you don't accuse me of abusing you or the children. She looked horrified. Jim, darling, I would never do that. And I never thought you'd run off and have an intim with another man. But you did, I said. I saw that. It hurt. If he had just given you a ride home, it would have been better. No, a big flashy car that was loud, attracting everyone's attention, and you just let him do it. I can't go out into town without hearing someone shout cuckold at me. If I go out, I have to go out at night so no one recognizes me. I have to run at night. I can't even go to the pub. I got kicked out, probably because I threw my beer on John Simpson for calling me a cuckold, and Fred Smith got a formal warning at work because of something he left on my desk. Then when I went to sort it out with him, he pushed me away, so I got a formal warning and was suspended from work for 2 weeks without pay for hitting him. I'm lucky that's all they did to me, probably because I'm the best designer they have, but I lost the promotion that I earned. You know, we were celebrating that promotion when you did it. Dr. Campbell opened his mouth to say something, and I pointed my finger at him. You, Mr. Dark Consultant, said it was my turn to speak, so shut your mouth. He closed his mouth and motioned for me to continue. How will you fix this? How will I recover from that night? I might as well move to another county, or I might just disappear and leave you to fend for yourself and pay the mortgage. If I get divorced, I'll lose half of what I'm worth, what I worked and studied for. But you are the one who cheated. Currently, I feel like I want to kill you and your boyfriend and spend the next 25 years in prison. I could get out in 15 years for good behavior. Pretty much the only thing stopping me is that I don't want my kids to have a killer father. And while we're on the topic of kids, I got a call from the school, and it turns out Sean got into a fight. Someone called you a name and Sean hit him. I begged the school not to expel him. Your night of passion ruined my whole life. I hope it was worth it because now that you've shown you're a cheating hot wife, all the Toms, Dicks, and Harrys will be after you. As far as I'm concerned, they can have your infected body. So this night of passion has ruined my life, your life, and the children's lives, so you have to live with it. After your night of passion, how the hell are you going to work it all out, or am I going to have to sit and wait for you to run off with the next celebrity who attracts your attention? Linda just sat there, shaking her head, saying, I won't. It hurts too much. I promise I won't. Then I got really angry. You also promised to stay faithful. Look how that worked out. Her body shook with sobs. The consultant turned to me and said, if you don't try, Mr. Northover, you'll never know. I looked at him. Why should I take the risk? The only reason I'm sitting here is because of the children. I actually felt better after my outburst. I took a deep breath and seemed to calm down a little. This was the first time I let it all out in one go. It was Linda's turn. Sorry, honey, I didn't really see the line at the ice cream machine. Honestly, I was coming home to you, so I smiled. It was a terrible night. He just rolled over and fell asleep. I'm so ashamed. I realized that I made a huge mistake, but you love me. You would forgive me, and I would fix everything. I thought about the things I could do for you to prove it, and this brought back happy memories. So I smiled and took the tests. The results should come this week, the doctor said. Well, that gives us a lot to think about until next week, the doctor said. When we got up to leave, I looked at the doctor and said, and even your damn receptionist. I noticed she turned his signed photo so I could see it. I don't think I'll come back here if they treat me like that. That was it, the session ended. I headed for the door, but the doctor beat me to it. He held the door for Linda, and she left. He looked at me and said, it was unprofessional what she did. Let me get this straight. Please be patient. He went to the back of the office and turned on the monitor, then called for security. We record everything that happens in these offices. I saw him fast-forwarding the video in the outer office. He saw how the receptionist turned the picture, although it was impossible to discern what was depicted on it. He walked to the office door, and I followed him. He walked over to her desk and turned the picture to see who was in it. He then turned to her and asked, what temporary work agency are you from, Mercedes? Why, she asked. Because if you are a standard receptionist whom they send, I will no longer work with them. Now leave. She collected her things, including the photo, and left. The doctor turned to me and said, I'm sorry about this, and it shows me some of the depth of the problems you are facing. By the way, if the police ask me about your incident with Darren Jones, I will have to tell them that I have a medical secret. This means that I know something but will not say anything differently. He extended his hand. This time, I shook it. We arrived separately, as Linda came from work and I came from home. Since I was still suspended, I went to another part of the city and sat on the riverbank where no one would recognize me or call me a cuckold. I recalled the events that led to this. I came home from work on a Wednesday 2 weeks ago, and Linda said to me with a big smile on her face, honey, to celebrate your promotion, I booked us a room at Red Har, one of those with a 4-poster bed. I'm sure you know what we can do on it, and there will be a little dancing. We can have an evening. It sounded tempting to me. It was something I could be happy about. We arrived at the hotel, and there was little time before the dinner she had booked. She went into the shower first. There wasn't enough room for both of us, otherwise we would have saved water. You know, I saw how she laid out the laundry, it looked good. It doesn't take me long to shower and shave. I came out of the bathroom, and she was getting dressed. Her hair was beautifully styled on top. She was wearing long garters, almost like a corset. This is one of my favorites. There was a beautiful red dress lying on the bed. She took the bra, and I walked over and took it from her, saying, since tonight is just for us, maybe we'll give the girls some freedom. She just smiled, took the bra from me, and put it on. I frowned, and she stuck her tongue out at me. I helped her put on her dress. While I buttoned up the lining, I looked at her. She looked gorgeous, and I told her, honey, you are the most beautiful woman in this city, and I love you very much. I extended my hand, and she took it, and we went to the restaurant. We were like two young lovers. I fed her dessert. I couldn't be happier. We finished dinner and headed to the ballroom. When we entered, I saw a small table in the corner. It was quite dark, so I headed there. Linda pulled me to the opposite side of the room, where 6 of our friends were sitting, mostly her friends. I sometimes play golf with Dave and Ed. Steven is not a golfer. He is a social member of the golf club and is on the entertainment committee. They were with their wives, Dee, Jane, and Denise. I didn't really like it, since she talked too much, but she and Linda had been friends since school. I pulled her hand and turned her towards me. Was this supposed to be a night just for us? When Dee found out what I had planned, they started inviting themselves. I couldn't stop them, but we won't be here long, I promise. That's why you don't book hotels for the girls to be free. You knew they would be here. Okay, 1 hour, and we're off to celebrate properly, just you and me. You're right, she said, smiling at me. I tried to get along with my friends. We danced a little, mostly slow dancing. Dee kept asking me to dance, but I refused. All my dances were for Linda. I told her that when the hour had passed, I reached out to Linda and said, "Honey, we have places we need to go." She stood up and took my hand, and we said goodbye with many knowing winks and nudges. As we turned to leave, he stood there. The most beautiful woman in the whole city is leaving so soon. May I ask you for one dance? I vaguely recognized him. Then it dawned on me that he was a local championship footballer. She looked at me and said, "Just one dance, honey, please." It's Marcus Vale. She had done so much for me. Okay, just one dance, no more. You and I have plans. I sat back down. Steven asked me if I wanted a beer. I thanked him and said no. It would only be one dance. Dee sat down next to me. Come on, don't be moody. It's just one dance, and it's Marcus Vale anyway. I don't care, I said. It's our night. It went unnoticed that while we were arguing, there was another dance going on, and I couldn't see them on the dance floor. This dance was not as fast as the others. I got up from the table and walked along the edge, and there they were in the corner. I headed towards them when suddenly 2 guys, whom I perceived as his friends, appeared in front of me, blocking my way. One of them grabbed me by the jacket and said, "I see you're upset, buddy. Go sit at your table, and we'll get you some food. There are 2 of us and 1 of you." I walked back to the table. I saw one of them heading towards Linda and Marcus. I returned to the table and heard ridicule from the guys, and Dee winked at me with her devious smile. There was another dance, and they didn't come back. This time, I stood up. I wasn't going to stop. As I stood up, they appeared in front of me. Her hand was wrapped around his waist, his hand resting on her waist. She looked at me and said, "Just one night, honey, and then I'll come back to you for the rest of my life." She turned and walked away with him. As she walked away, she looked over her shoulder and said, "I'll see you in the morning. It's just one night. I love you." I was about to follow her when Dee stood in front of me and hands grabbed me from behind. "It's one night. Just give her one night, and she'll come back. She'll fix everything. This is Marcus Vale." With the help of my elbows and heels, I managed to free myself. I made my way through the crowd to meet his 2 friends again. One put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Leave it. She'll be back tomorrow. Nothing bad will happen, I promise." I didn't know this idiot, so I didn't believe him. I remembered something about bouncers, and all I saw were the tail lights of the car moving away. I took out my phone to track her, but her phone was turned off, so there was nothing. There were no tears, only anger. And there would be pain, not just mine. I returned to the table. They were all there. It was obvious there was an argument going on with Steven and Denise shouting at the other 4. When I came up, they could see how angry I was. I told them, "Next time you see her, tell her it's a scam." I looked at Edward and Dave and said, "Next time I see you, you better turn around and run away, because I'm going to take the biggest stick I can find and beat you to a pulp. I suggest you stay away from dark places from now on." I turned and walked away from Linda's friends. I went up to our room, collected my things, and went home. I left her things there. Now I was crying. Our 2 children, Sean and Carrie, were with her parents, so the house was empty. They were supposed to return on Sunday evening. I spent the night pacing back and forth in our living room, wondering what the hell I did wrong. I went to our home gym in the garage and started pedaling hard on the exercise bike. It didn't help, so I switched to whiskey. But after a couple of sips, I realized that wasn't the answer either. And then I saw the sun rise. It was 4 o'clock in the morning. I went outside and looked at it, wondering what I had done wrong. I think I finally fell asleep in one of the lawn chairs. I woke up to the sound of children playing. I went into the house and made coffee, wondering what time the cheater would return in the morning. I waited. The sound of the ice cream machine drew me to the front of the house. It was nice to see happy people. I heard the car before I saw it. It was already past 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Just like she said, "See you in the morning." I saw them pull up, and so did everyone in line for ice cream. He came out and opened the door for her, offering his hand. She needed help getting out of the car in that dress. It was so low. He kissed her cheek, looked towards the house, and grinned. She walked towards the house with a smile, passing the line at the ice cream machine. Could it be worse? She walked up to the house and didn't have the keys, so she knocked on the front door. I didn't open it. I was just sitting there waiting. I heard the back door open, and she walked into the living room. She came up to me and said, "I'm sorry, honey. It was a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. If it was a mistake, why did you come home before midnight? I'm not sure I believe you. You probably wanted to sleep with your boyfriend again." "No, I didn't want to. I'm ashamed. I didn't want him to bring me at all, but I didn't have money. Everyone was at the hotel. I needed to come to my senses after what I had done, but he refused until noon. Your money is everything more in the hotel, along with all your things, even the good ones. If you want to pick them up, I suggest you go and get them." I stood up and decided to change clothes to go for a run. Maybe endorphins would help. Alcohol at night had not helped. As I walked down the stairs, she told me that the hotel had kept her things. Then it started. As soon as I walked out the front door, I heard the first scream that would haunt me for days. "Hey, cuckold! How was your night?" I looked around but couldn't figure out where it was coming from, and there were a lot of people who could have shouted it. After that, I stayed at home most of the time during the day. I would get up very early in the morning to run or work out in our home gym. I used to go swimming once a week, but now I wasn't going to do it. I did some digging on the internet about Mr. Vale. While I softened a little towards Linda, even starting to prepare food for her, I still didn't talk to her unless I had to. The following week, we had another meeting with the consultant. Linda pointed out that although we slept in the same bed so the children wouldn't notice, I didn't let her touch me. I started wearing pajamas, which I had never done before. If she touched me, I would go downstairs and sleep on the couch, then get up early in the morning and go for a run. "Children are not stupid, and they notice that something is wrong," she said. "You don't talk to me, you ignore me. You talk to them, play with them, but you have nothing in common with me. They've noticed it and asked why you don't kiss me like you used to and don't talk to me." I just looked at her. "What do you expect? You gave your love to another man. That means you don't love me, which means I don't love you. I'm only here for the children." I was angry, but the problem was that I still loved her, more than I was sure I could forgive her for what she did. Do it once, she can do it again. How can I trust you? You ran away from me once. How do I know you won't do it to the next movie star or pop star who happens to walk in? If I forgive you, it'll practically give you a blank check to do it again. At this point, the consultant turned to me and said, "If you don't try, Mr. Vale, you'll never know." I looked at him. Why would I risk it? What's to stop her from doing it again and me having to go through all this pain again? The only reason I'm here is because of Sean and Carrie. He looked at her and said, "Linda, what do you have to say about this?" "I'm sorry, Jim." "I'm really sorry," she said, crying now. She lowered her eyes to her knees and continued, "The night was good. He did the job, he's experienced. But it was just intim. It was empty. It was superficial. It was meaningless. There was no passion. He just rolled over and went to sleep, and I lay there. Then I realized what I had done. Lying there, I vowed to myself to fix everything and never do it again. I opened my mouth to say something, but the consultant raised his hand. "Please, Jim." "Mr. Vale, let her finish." It was almost as if he was reading my thoughts. Linda stood up and walked over to me on her knees, taking my hands. I know I said it before at our wedding, and I meant it then, but now I mean it more. Help me. I don't know how to fix this. Lying there, I thought that you would forgive me because you love me. We've forgiven each other things in the past, like when I dented my car or when you broke my favorite vase. But I didn't realize the amount of pain and suffering I caused you until you spoke up last week. I couldn't imagine how much pain I caused you. I can't take it back. I can't undo what I did. I can't undo the way I left you, and I can't take away the humiliation you've been feeling these last couple of weeks. But I can make things right. Please, help me. I need your help. She was now crying loudly, and I was seething. She had done a lot of things, and now she was begging me for help. I helped her get up and took her back to her chair. She sat down, and I went to sit in my chair, looked at her, and said, "No." She cried even harder, and I sat there, full of anger. I was on the edge when a shadow appeared on my shoulder. I looked up. It was the receptionist, holding a mug in her hands. "It's tea." "It's strong and very hot," she said, with sadness in her eyes as she looked at me. She gave me a faint smile, and for some reason, I felt like she was on my side. I took the mug in my hands. She was right, the tea was very hot. I squeezed the mug, and the pain was almost pleasant. I started to calm down. I knew Linda had met with Dr. Campbell this week, and it sounded like a prepared statement. But sitting there, clutching my mug and looking at Linda's crying face and Dr. Campbell, who didn't look happy, I had a feeling she might be sincere. After a few minutes, we continued talking about our feelings and how we were getting along. I said we were approaching a new normal, but I didn't say what it was. John looked at his watch and quickly changed the subject. "Jim, let's talk about Marcus Vale. What do you think he gets out of this?" A flash of anger crossed my face as he used my name. I think he understood it. Linda lowered her eyes again. I spent time online researching this idiot, and it came in handy. I thought about it a bit and had an answer. I think he likes to seduce other men's wives in front of them. Knowing that he has the support of his teammates makes him feel safe. It's not just about a night with a beautiful woman. Do you think he's done this before? Have you heard any rumors? The internet is full of everything, rumors and hints. I'm not sure what to believe, but now that I've seen him in action, I think some of the rumors are true. Tell me the rumors. Who do you think he's seduced? I don't always believe rumors, but sometimes there's no fire without smoke. I heard that one was the wife of the deputy police commissioner, one of our local parliamentarians, and several others. They even talked about the mayor's wife. I believe he divorced his wife after he left for resignation. So you would say these are people in power? Yes, probably. If they used their power to bring him down, it could be considered an abuse of power. Don't you agree? I see where you're going with this. Not only did he want to take their wives, but he also wanted to do it in front of them, making a mockery of their power. So why do you think he chose Linda? She's a beautiful woman, but I don't want to be rude, you're Mr. Average. You have no power. I have no idea, I said, looking at Dr. Campbell. I'm sure he had some ideas, but I think you should share this. He smiled. I think he's tired of winning the wives of powerful but physically weak men. You're a fit man. You're not a professional athlete, but you keep yourself in shape, and it shows. You're a little smaller than him. He wanted to win the wife of someone physically strong. Linda was there, and as you said, she looked beautiful. You fit his target, and he was absolutely safe because he had a team of companions. Now everything became clear, and I began to feel better about Dr. Campbell. He turned out to be not so bad. After the session, Dr. Campbell asked me to stay. Jim, Mr. Northover, I know you're angry, and I can see why, but I have a few suggestions that might help you." He raised his hand when I opened my mouth. "Just let me finish, please. I have an attorney friend who I think can talk to your company on your behalf about losing your promotion for what was essentially self-defense. HR approving Fred Smith's actions could leave them open to legal action. And I totally agree that if anything happens to Marcus, you will be the prime suspect and will need to maintain an alibi 24/7/365. I have a cop friend who would like to meet with you or advise you on how to do this." "Is this normal?" I asked. I just nodded my head. This was not the help I expected. I expected him to tell me to just suck it up and interact more with Linda. I probably should have changed my mind about this man even more. "Dr. Campbell, I would appreciate it. Do you have my address and phone number?" I tried not to speak in complete anger and softened the tone of my voice. I think I succeeded because he smiled at me. "Please, Jim, think about what Linda said. She knows how wrong she was and really needs your help." He held out his hand to me, and I shook it. He looked at me and said, "I think this will end soon, Mr. Northover. Hang in there. The insults will subside over time, and most people will forget about it. But let's not make light of it. It's always up in the air. Someday in the future, it will come up when you least expect it. I want to help you prepare for that moment." He was right. People stopped shouting cuckold at me, but the sidelong glances remained. I looked at him. "Jim," he said, smiling again. As I was leaving, I looked at his new receptionist. I hope she was better than the previous one. I almost had to look twice, she looked familiar. No matter, I had other problems on my mind. When I returned home, there was a package with a mobile phone in it, addressed only to me. No address. I opened the package, and there was a letter, "Call the first number." I turned on the phone. There were only 4 numbers in the address book, labeled A, B, C, and D. I called the number, and they picked up right away. "Hi, Jim. This will be a short call to let you know you are not alone. May I call you later for a longer conversation? My name is Albert, and your other friends are Bertram, Cuthbert, and Dilbert. If you have any questions, call one of us." Before I could say anything, he hung up. The call never came, but I was intrigued. 2 days later, I was called to work. I was suspended without pay after the Fred Smith incident. I was told that I had a meeting with Manager M at 10 a.m. I arrived at work, knocked on the door, and burst into my manager's office without an invitation. If I was going to get fired, let's get it over with quickly. My manager, the company lawyer, and the head of HR were there, along with a middle-aged man in an elegant suit whom I had never seen before. The HR director began, "Jim, it has been pointed out to us that our approach to defending you against Mr. Smith could expose the company to legal action. Denying you a promotion could be perceived as retaliation and supporting a criminal. We have also received complaints from some of your colleagues about your appeal since you defended yourself. Therefore, we would like to reinstate your promotion, but the warning should remain, though it will be downgraded to informal. I must tell you that the company lawyer believes this case is on the verge of losing, but your friend Mr. Jackson indicated that it won't pass muster with the Daily Mail. What do you think of that? Oh, and you'll be paid for the time you were on holiday. Mr. Smith has been suspended without pay for another 2 weeks." I didn't know who Mr. Jackson was, but I liked him, and until that moment, he hadn't even said a word. I accepted their offer. Mr. Jackson and I left the office. We didn't speak until we were out of the building. He extended his hand to me and said, "John Campbell said you could use a little help to restore order." I'm glad I could help. By the way, the whole office has to go through mandatory training again, and they'll be sacked if anything happens. Will something like this happen again? Do you have a phone? I asked. He nodded. Okay, if you have any problems, call any number. We shook hands, and he left. I was amazed, but with this phone, I didn't feel alone. I returned home, amazed. I needed to get my work clothes ready for the morning. I hadn't been in the house for half an hour when the doorbell rang. Since I had not opened the front door since the incident, I peeked through the window next to the door. There was a guy standing there in a work uniform, holding a business card that said Wakefield Securities. I opened the door with the chain and asked what he wanted. A cop friend of mine said you needed help with security, some sort of 24/7 alibi. My friend couldn't come, but he sent me to help you and give you advice. Dr. Campbell asked him to come in, but he couldn't, so he sent me. I let him in and showed him the CCTV system I had installed. He said that I did a good job but went too far. There's no need to put a camera in the toilet and bathroom because the cameras in the kitchen and bedroom already record everyone who enters or leaves. There's no other way. I pointed out that I wanted to see what she did when she was alone there, but that was what worried me. I didn't want to tell him that she might be self-blaming and blaming me for it. He seemed to understand and muttered under his breath. He suggested several changes to the cameras for better resolution and offered cloud storage to back up my hard drives. He gave me the contacts of a site that currently offers great rates. He suggested replacing some of the cameras in the bathroom and toilet with listening devices and using those cameras in other places. Although it was a good offer, I refused, saying that audio recordings wouldn't capture someone texting. He still installed 2 better outdoor cameras. I returned to work, and things at home were approaching a new normal. For the rest of the week, people gave me a wide berth. I made an effort to dispel this by being a little more lively, excited to be back at work. By Friday, everything had calmed down. I tried to talk to Linda more at home, but it was still difficult. I spent a lot of time hitting a punching bag to release some of my pent-up anger. Betrayal by those you love can do that. The local newspaper, the Journal, reported criminal damage to Mr. David Brown's car. It was vandalized in the golf club parking lot. CCTV footage shows a man in dark clothing and a hood damaging the vehicle before running off into the darkness. All this took less than 45 seconds. People took longer to react. Oh, and it was mentioned that the golf club was ruined. The criminal was quite dexterous and fit. The police investigated but had no leads yet. The golf club has beefed up security, hired a security guard to patrol the parking lot, and increased the lighting. They even plan to extend CCTV coverage to the corners. As a member of the golf club, I'm sure rumors of the altercation at Red Heart had reached the police, or Dave might have pointed them at me. I was expecting a visit, they were just doing their job. 2 uniformed policemen arrived. They were polite, so I invited them in. They asked where I was the night of the incident. I told them that I was probably at home, but I couldn't remember exactly what I did last week. They asked if I had any conflict with Mr. Brown. I guess they heard. I admitted that we had a conflict and were no longer friends. I also pointed out that they would have to prove my guilt rather than me having to prove my innocence. At that moment, Linda came into the room, drying her hands with a towel. She looked at the 2 police officers and said, "He's been with me every night for the past week." She looked at me, smiled, and left. I tried to be normal with Linda after that and talked to her more for the sake of the children, but it was damn hard. I kept having angry outbursts about what she did and having to leave the room. Linda came home from work on Friday, and she was furious. She came up to me. I was pulled over by the police. My car insurance expired. "Why didn't you renew it? Why do I have to do that? Why would I do anything for you after what you did to me? Get used to it," I snapped at her. "And you'll have to pay the fine yourself." They let me off with a warning if I renewed my insurance as soon as I got home. I just snorted and walked away. The next visit to the consultant was met with varying degrees of success. He asked how we were getting along and how we were feeling. I said I tried, but I had angry outbursts. I mentioned that we had guests who helped me and that returning to work made life easier, not only financially but also mentally. Keeping busy was helpful. I didn't tell him about my plan to leave her once Sean turned 18 or when he left home. Linda admitted that she saw my efforts, but then she started talking about how I didn't renew her car insurance and she was pulled over but let go. She looked at me angrily. I leaned forward and, looking at Dr. B, said, "She was probably only released because she is a friend of the local football star." I had other thoughts running through my head about her being an easy target or about her being a hot wife, but I decided to keep them to myself for now. I saw how she reacted, it didn't even cross her mind. I didn't stop the cops, probably as fans hoping he will lead the team to the Premier League next year. Young people adore him, the older generation is not so kind to him. It was time to tell a few more home truths. I looked at her. We were supposed to have lunch with your parents last Sunday, but when I didn't go, what did you tell them? She looked down at her knee. We just had a fight. I didn't say anything else because the kids were nearby. She fell silent after that. I didn't think that was the whole truth. Dr. John looked at her and said, "We can talk about this later." I knew she was seeing him separately to get help. Neither our parents nor hers were familiar with computers, so social networks were alien to them. Fortunately, the session seemed to naturally come to an end, and we prepared to leave. As we approached the door, Dr. John said to me, "Jim, please don't do anything stupid again. There are things we can't protect you from." I muttered something in response, not sure if he knew the truth or was just putting two and two together. That night, after the kids went to bed, I said to her, "So, you told your parents that we were having a little conflict. Did you tell them what the conflict was about?" "No," she replied. "I told them we disagreed on something, but I didn't tell them what it was." "Well, I'm sure they took your side, didn't they?" She just nodded. "So, you told them we had a little conflict, but you didn't tell them what it was. Why not? Are you ashamed?" "Yes," she screamed at me. "But don't be too ashamed to let me take the blame. You told them I didn't understand your point." No surprise with that. She stood up, grabbed her purse and car keys, and left the house. I heard her drive away. An hour later, she returned in tears. "I just told Mom and Dad the whole story. I don't think they'll talk to me, and I don't think Dad is happy with you." I felt sorry for her and softened. I went up to her and hugged her. This was the first touch since that night. She cried into my chest, but when she tried to hug me back, I stopped her. She went to sleep, and I went for a run. I wasn't going to take the blame. I took the phone and made a 20-minute run to her parents' house. I called them and told them I was going to see them. I didn't give them a choice. I'm not sure if they were happy to see me when I arrived, but it was obvious that her father was not pleased with me. I loved them both, but I wasn't going to take the blame for it. Her mother brought tea, and I played a recording of my visit to the consultant. As it played, I saw her father's face change. I didn't get a chance to protect her, people were constantly disturbing me. Her father offered to take me home, and I agreed. It was some kind of irritation on both sides, and it probably wouldn't be wise to run after 2 cups of tea and a large slice of fruitcake. It wasn't far, and we didn't talk on the road. When we arrived, he got out of the car and hugged me. "Sorry, son. If you need anything, let me know." I think he had tears in his eyes when he left. After Linda's last solo meeting with Dr. John, she seemed very withdrawn, as if she was thinking about something. Saturday arrived, and I was doing my usual weekend chores around the house. I spent some time playing catch with the kids and some time in the home gym. I was thinking about going out for a beer later. The few pubs on the other side of town probably wouldn't recognize me, and to be honest, the insults had died down, but occasionally you could see mocking smiles when someone recognized me. Linda said she was going to take the children to my parents. She said she would bring them back later that day. I talked to my parents. They knew what was going on, they were on my side but loved Linda and would do anything they could to help. They mostly stayed away, understanding that this was something we needed to figure out ourselves. They, like Linda's parents, offered to take the kids anytime we needed time together. Personally, I didn't see the need for this. It was around 1 o'clock in the afternoon when I heard the sound of an ice cream truck down the street. This sound no longer made me happy. Then I received a text message from Linda, "Please look at the ice cream machine." I instantly responded, "No, what was she trying to do this time?" Linda called. I figured one way to find out what she was up to was to answer, so I picked up the phone. Please do this for me. I'm begging you." Well, now she intrigues me, I thought. Fine. I certainly wasn't going to stand by the window and watch another performance of hers, but I could watch her from the camera pointed at the front of the house. The ice cream man arrived, and soon there was a line. Then the front door of the van opened, and someone got out. He was wearing a sack. He dropped to his hands and knees and began to crawl towards the house. He had a sign hanging around his neck on a cord. I zoomed in, and it was Linda. I walked to the front door and opened it. It looked like she had cut holes in the top and sides of the bag and had a string holding it in the middle. She crawled on her hands and knees past the same crowd she had encountered when returning from her night with that idiot. Then the insults started. Cheater, and other women in line began insulting her too. It was mass hysteria. Reckless woman of easy virtue. Someone threw ice cream at her, and it got stuck in her hair. The sign around her neck must have tipped off the crowd, as it read, "I beg your pardon." I was mistaken. Woman of easy virtue. Everyone took out their phones, but she continued to crawl on her hands and knees until she reached me and then bowed before me. I extended my hand to help her get up and led her into the house. The cameras were still filming. I walked up to the line and shouted, "If I see this on the internet, I'll come after you. Show some decency. Haven't we suffered enough yet?" I left. I recognized most of the women in the line, but there were one or two I didn't know. I think it was them who started getting abusive. I don't think she lived here, but she seemed familiar to me. I was sure I had seen her somewhere before. Her hair was different, she dressed differently, but I had definitely seen her before. I couldn't remember where. It didn't matter, I had other problems at the moment. I helped Linda inside, sat her down in a chair, and brought her a hair towel and tea. I looked at her and said, "Just tell me why." "I don't know," she said. I found myself in a moment. A handsome, famous young man chose me out of all the beautiful women. He chose me, and I knew that you would forgive me. You lifted me up all night. I couldn't make a mistake. She looked down at her hands. But I was so wrong. You didn't forgive me, and when you screamed at me in John's office, I completely understood it. The shame and pain I caused you. You couldn't even defend yourself. And to come home like this, I wish I had even noticed the ice cream truck. She raised her head and looked at me. I'm sorry about the kiss on the cheek. He wanted to kiss me on the lips, but I didn't allow it. I turned my head at the last second. She lowered her eyes to her knees again and whispered, "Just like I didn't let him sleep with me this morning. I wouldn't want to bring you what's left." Her body was shaking with sobs. "If you want a divorce, I won't resist, but we will have to share custody of the children. But I want to take revenge on him. I have to take most of the blame. I should have been stronger. I shouldn't have let him seduce me. But John told me some of his stories, and it's a game for him, seducing married women in front of their husbands and then not giving them a chance to assert their rights. It wasn't me he wanted, it was a power game for him, and you were his target. I was just a pawn in his game. I'm not that beautiful after all." She looked at me. "I want to hurt him for what he did to our family," she said, gritting her teeth. I thought to myself, how come the consultant knows his story? She continued, "It was empty. Then I realized that I had done well, not everything until you swore in John's office." "I'm sorry, honey." "Then why didn't you just come home?" I pointed this out to her. I was ashamed of what I did. I didn't know how to look you in the eyes, and I didn't know where I was. I was so enamored with being with him that I didn't see where we were going, and I didn't have any money. You had a phone. You could have called me. I didn't know where you were, and I didn't know if you would come for me after what I did." She seemed to have no more words. She just sat and sobbed. I think that was the moment I gave up. After seeing the humiliation she went through and her realization of the full impact of what she had done to our lives, she seemed absolutely remorseful for her actions. I extended my hand to her. "Come on. I'll help you shower, and then I'll pick up the children. They're staying at your parents' place overnight." She took my hand, and I led her upstairs to the shower. I think she was sleeping, but every now and then she would start and sob. Forgiveness began to come. I didn't sleep much, thinking about what she had done earlier. It couldn't have been a spontaneous act, it would have required some planning to orchestrate such humiliation. The next morning, the house was a completely different place. I checked social media, these were her pages, not mine. I deleted mine a couple of weeks ago. For some reason, there were no posts. It was clear that several had been deleted. We didn't talk much, almost like we didn't know what to say. We went about our business. She cleaned the toilet, washed clothes, and made a couple of cups of tea, but kept walking past me, touching me. It seemed like she wanted to make sure I was still here. I didn't reject her touch like I used to. I had been working on cars that had been abandoned for the last couple of weeks, so I got dirty and went upstairs to shower. She was making the bed when I left. She touched me as I walked out. I don't know why it came to my mind, but I said, "We can't." She looked at me with bewilderment. Her light bulb went on, and she jumped out of bed and ran downstairs. I heard clattering down the stairs, like a fairy tale elephant, and then back up, probably 2 steps at a time. She had a piece of paper in her hands. "I'm clean. I got tested on Monday," she said, looking down. I didn't trust him. I grabbed her hand and pulled her back onto the bed. We made love. After that, I think we both slept well for a couple of hours. Over the past few weeks, I was rudely awakened by the doorbell ringing. All I heard was, "Oh my gosh, kids." With these words, she grabbed a robe, seemingly mine, and ran downstairs. I looked at the clock on the bedside table. It was already 5 o'clock. I assumed that my parents had returned the children. I thought I'd better go say hello, so I grabbed the second robe and went downstairs. I wasn't really thinking, but seeing my mother's mouth wide open and my father standing there with a big smile, I think they put 2 and 2 together and realized what was going on. My mother began to cry. I sheepishly asked them if they wanted tea. Fortunately, they refused. They told us that the children had been fed, organized, and kept occupied all day. The house wasn't all sweetness and sunshine. I still had fits of anger, but they didn't last long, and I managed to control them. She still touched me every time she passed by. Things got better, and it became known that I was no longer banned from the pub. I still haven't returned. People at work commented on how much happier I seemed. Before this, I must have been a real grumpy idiot. This time, I was almost looking forward to seeing Dr. John. It was interesting, and I learned a little more about what Linda was thinking. Now she mentioned it after the ice cream truck incident. As we entered Dr. John's office, I suddenly recognized the secretary. I was pretty sure she was the one who had started shouting insults at Linda at the ice cream truck. Maybe she was the one who threw the ice cream, but I couldn't be sure. She stood out because she was one of the few who didn't have a camera. We didn't wait long before Dr. John called us into his office. He saw the difference and had a big smile on his face. For the first time, we actually sat next to each other. He started the conversation. "I think something has happened since we last saw each other. Do you want to talk about it, Linda? Do you want to go first?" I realized that he could have gotten the whole story from his administrator. "Can you tell me and Jim why you did it?" She stood up, looked at me with that determined face I hadn't seen in weeks, and said, "I can't take away your humiliation. I can't undo what I did to you. When I came home that Sunday afternoon, I could, however, join you in your humiliation. That's what I decided to do." She lost her composure a little. "To show you how sorry I am, it was as bad as I thought. I wanted to get up and run, but I forced myself to crawl past those people who saw me that Sunday. I was not humiliated that day, but the humiliation began there for you." Dr. John looked at me. "What do you think about this, Jim? This should probably make you feel better." It wasn't fair, 2 questions in one, and the second one was leading. I had to think about these questions. I wasn't quite sure how I felt about it, but it was a brave move, that's for sure. It shows how sorry she is if she went through this. However, I was still confused. Dr. John told me, "You managed to stop people from talking about the incident on social media. Why did you do this?" I know what shame and trouble it caused me. She probably couldn't have prevented what happened to me, but I didn't want her to go through the same crap I did. I paused. "Who came up with this idea?" Dr. John responded, "This arose as a result of our discussion about the humiliation you experienced. Then Linda wanted to make it smaller. We realized that this was impossible, so she came up with the idea of stooping to your level to endure the same humiliation as you. She didn't tell me what she planned to do, but I know she hired my secretary to help her." This confirmed my thoughts. She was the one I saw in line for ice cream. She had made herself look different by changing her hairstyle. Dr. Jisen continued, after you left, you didn't see how all the women attacked the one who threw the ice cream. It seems it went too far, and your comment, haven't we suffered enough, may have hit the mark. I made it a point to have short sessions with Dr. John throughout the week if something bothered me. Sometimes it was just a telephone call, sometimes he called me himself. It seemed strange to me that he always had time for me. It helped me control my anger, well, almost always. Jim, I asked Linda if I could share this. She seemed to agree. I know Linda wants revenge, not just against Vil, but also against Edward, David, and their wives for what they did. She didn't fully understand the impact of their actions until you spoke up at your first meeting with me. Linda squeezed my hand. My father was right, you would have stood up for me. And I can't be sure, but if you appeared in front of me, I might have changed my mind. She cried again. But we'll never know. You never had a chance because they stopped you. Dr. John continued, I suspect you have already started to take revenge on them. As your consultant, I must ask, please don't do anything else that could land you in jail. This won't help Linda at all. I smiled at him and said, I'll be careful. She told me she wanted revenge on Vil, but she didn't mention the others. I already had a plan and was discreetly collecting the necessary things to carry it out. On Monday evening, Stephen and Denise came to our house. Stephen was very apologetic for not supporting me enough in recent weeks and for not doing more. That night, Denise was in the kitchen with Linda, making coffee, but they were there much longer than it took to boil the kettle. He told me they had quarreled with the other four. In fact, they hadn't spoken since and weren't expected to any time soon. Look, I know you love to play golf, but you haven't played since this started. How about I play with you early in the morning before most people get there? I'm not a good player, but I can keep you company. Thanks, buddy, but why? Because I'm ashamed. Maybe I could have helped you if I had realized what Dave and Dee were doing sooner. I accepted his offer, even though I knew we would spend most of the time looking for his golf balls. It's better to take a lot of spare ones. Stephen and I weren't the best of friends in the group, but he'd always been a decent guy, and now he was proving it. We arrived at the golf club early, and as he promised, Stephen kept up with me. We only played 9 holes, but it was enjoyable. It wasn't my best game, but I enjoyed it. As I was walking, I thought, this is a good friend. He exposed himself to fire just so I can get out. Back at the clubhouse, he mentioned that there was a dance on Saturday night and asked if Linda and I would like to go. I was a member of the club, so I didn't need a special invitation. I told him I wasn't sure if I wanted to be ridiculed again. Even though Linda and I were working things out, it felt too soon. He tapped me on the shoulder and said, whenever you're ready, buddy. He then told me that he had spoken to the committee and that the general feeling among the club members was that anyone who said anything derogatory about me would be considered behavior unbecoming of a member, and their membership would be reconsidered. There was a waiting list to join the club, so everyone knew what that meant. I felt that after the initial surge of humiliation, there was now a wave of pity that was almost as bad. On the way home, I realized that my revenge plan would be easier to carry out if I was at the club. I would have to think about it. When I arrived home, it was obvious that Denise was talking to Linda about the dance. Linda was determined because she wanted to publicly demonstrate her affection for me, and the golf club was a safe place to do so. I wasn't sure if I wanted to be seen forgiving her. Would that make me a weakling? I'd have to talk to Dr. John about it. Dave, Edward, and their wives will most likely be there, I thought. For the rest of the day, the seed of my plan ripened fully, but I would need another round of golf early in the morning. I talked to Dr. John about it, and he indicated that this was what was eventually going to happen and that the golf club would probably be a safe place for our first outing. I called Stephen and asked for another round of early morning golf. At the same time, I heard Linda in the other room on the phone with Denise, telling her that she had convinced me to go to the dance. I let Stephen know that I had been persuaded. While we played, I felt this might be a betrayal, but I thought that if I asked him, he might have helped me anyway. I just didn't want to get him into trouble if something went wrong with my plan. While walking, he told me that Linda had shared some of our problems with Denise, including the fact that I was fired from my job and banned from the pub, and my alibi 24/7. He apologized again for not being there for me. After the round, I offered Stephen coffee as a modest reward for his company. I've already decided that he won't pay for drinks today. I excused myself and went to the restroom. After making sure I had a screwdriver in my pocket, I didn't forget my need for a 24-hour alibi. There were no cameras in the hallway to the restrooms, and although there was a fire exit at the far end, they would know if someone came out through it because it was alarmed. We picked up Stephen and Denise on the way, and as expected, Dave, Edward, and Jane were there too. I looked around and saw their cars, DN and X5, probably their MC hasn't been returned yet. Edward's Range Rover Overfinch was there. It's not new but very nice, his pride and joy. Unfortunately, they were not parked together. In fact, there was a space next to Overfinch that Linda used. The evening went well. I kept my word, and Stephen didn't pay for the drinks. I insisted, but I watched how much I drank. Then I saw my chance. The security guard had just returned from one of his rounds around the parking lot. I excused myself and went into the small room. He ran out the fire exit like a rat through a chimney. I grabbed the bag I had hidden behind the fire exit earlier, put on my gloves, and took out the first gas burner from it. I lit it, pointing it under the X5, aiming for the fuel tank. I didn't know how long it would take, and since it was diesel, I didn't know how quickly it would catch fire. Then there was the Overfinch, which was closer to the fire exit and ran on petrol, which burns better than diesel. I pointed the lit gas burner under the Overfinch tank and then ran back through the fire exit, slamming it behind me. It's good that I trained. I wasn't out of breath when I came back and sat down at the table. About 2 minutes after I returned, there was a loud explosion. People ran outside, some through the front door, others through the fire exit. Linda looked at me. We followed the crowd through the fire exit. I was the last one to arrive and only had a few seconds to reconnect the fire door sensor, just as the alarm went off. I don't think anyone noticed. They were more interested in the burning Overfinch. Unfortunately, one of the cars parked nearby was also slightly burned. I looked around, and with the extra lighting in the parking lot, the small flame under the X5 was not visible unless you knew where to look. I knew, and suddenly it flashed brighter, but still focused on Overfinch. By the time they noticed, it was too late, and the X5 was completely engulfed in flames. People managed to drive their cars away from the burning X5. People saw whose cars were on fire, and many glances were thrown in my direction. I just smiled. The crowd split, and a very angry Edward rushed toward me, shouting, "You did it, you an idiot!" He and Stephen attacked me, but I fought them back. It was time to return to the club. We could hear emergency sirens in the distance. I decided I needed to sit down and have a beer. It was going to be a long night. Linda never strayed far from me. She held my hand as we walked back through the front door. She whispered to me with a smile, "Are you satisfied now?" I replied, "And you?" "Oh yes," she said, then kissed me. The police interviewed everyone. Strange, but I was the last to be interrogated. I could describe every minute until I went to the restroom, and as Stephen pointed out, I didn't have time to go around and light the fire. I would have been seen on CCTV, and security would have seen me leaving through the front door. The fire exit was alarmed, and no one heard it go off until everyone went to check on the fire. There were discussions about the attack on David and Edward, but it was ruled self-defense after CCTV footage was reviewed. The policeman said David and Edward might be charged with something, but he would have to discuss it with his superiors. "Oh, okay," I said. It probably helped that our car was parked next to Overfinch. Okay, it wasn't our best car, it was Linda's school bus, and if it required replacement, so be it. Stephen and Denise offered to take a taxi home. We didn't get home until early morning. The sun was already rising. Things were returning to normal. Linda continued to walk past me, touching me. Unfortunately, I still experienced outbursts of anger. On one of our trips to see Dr. John, he made what I thought was a ridiculous proposal. We had to go back to where it all started, have a good night, and exercise our demons. Leave everything behind, especially me. Going back to Red Hat on Saturday night for the dance, I wasn't sure. Now I liked Red Hat. They sell good beer, there's a roaring fire at Christmas, and the best bacon and brie sandwiches you can find in town. It's a small thing, I know, but I would feel sorry for the place. But yes, it can help exorcise demons. I told him I was worried about that idiot showing up again. Dr. John assured me that if he showed up, he wouldn't be interested in Linda. He's been with her once and never goes back to the same woman twice, he said. He studied this man, he confessed. I think Linda and I realized it ourselves. Linda agreed that we should continue to show people that we are together, and if he is there, she will have fun ignoring him. I admit I was scared. She did it once, will she do it again? At that moment, I made a decision, yes, we will go, and if she leaves with him again, it will be the end. There will be no coming back a second time, and I will take everything back one way or another if she comes home with me. Dr. John was right, it would give me closure, but let's see in the morning. Dr. John also assured me that there would be people, including himself, keeping an eye on me in case anyone wanted to do anything. It made me feel a little better, just a little. I felt like Linda and Dr. John were talking to me, and it felt like a trap. I had no one to talk to, and it was a bit of a risk. I wasn't sure if I could trust what he was saying. I called Albert and told him about my concerns, including that I might not believe what he would say because I was confused. He just laughed it off and suggested we call Dilbert because that was his specialty. I thought about it, so I decided to keep an open mind. I realized I had nothing to lose, so I called Dilbert. I think Albert warned him because he immediately began, Jim, I understand why you might be worried, but we think John Campbell wants you to calm down and stop looking back. Don't worry, there will be people there to make sure you won't be disturbed. He laughed a little, which was annoying, until he said, I think you've sorted out your old friends. I don't think they will show up. We were getting ready. I admit I was nervous. She looked gorgeous this time in a purple dress that showed off her cleavage, and she let the girls go free. The dress was cut to the thigh, and if you looked quickly, you could see that she was wearing stockings. I just hoped it was all for me. She saw that I was nervous about this. Darling, please don't worry. This is my chance to prove to you that I'm yours, she said. She looked amazing that Friday night in the red dress, but she looked even better now. What bothered me the most was that she didn't seem nervous, she was looking forward to this. I think it made me even more nervous. I started to calm down after we ate. After dinner, we headed to the ballroom. We danced a couple of times, she smiled at me and held on to me. The time was getting closer to when we had to go to our room. I grabbed a beer on the way, I'd only had 2 glasses of wine before, just in case you know. Then, like last time, just as we were about to leave, he entered. He looked around, saw us, and headed straight towards us. He had a smirk on his face. I'll take your woman again, he said. So much for Dr. Campbell's assessment. I felt for a second that this was just another setup, but then he was in front of me, and I had to do something. Get out of the way, cuckold. I want to dance with your woman. Linda was next to me. Let's leave, dear. He's not worth it. He's not so great in bed either, he just shows himself well, like on the field. It's all show and no substance. Now I knew whose side she was on and who she would go home with, or to the hospital if I'm wrong. I could see how angry this made him. Linda, sit down. This is a man's job. We were so close that I could feel his breath. From the corner of my eye, I saw people taking out their phones. I felt a hand on my right shoulder and heard the words, come on, buddy. I looked the idiot in the eye. If you want her, you'll have to go through me. But you are too cowardly, so just leave. I saw the rage in his eyes. He attacked me. By this time, the guards were already rushing in, one of them was on the phone. All this took less than a minute. I sat down, the security guard told me to stay put. I had no reason to move. My job was done. If I wanted to leave, he wouldn't have stopped me. Stephen brought me a beer. Denise appeared next to Linda. I looked at them both and asked why. Denise reached across the table and grabbed mine. Sherry, the former mayor's ex-wife, and I went to school together, she said, as if that explained everything. It probably did. They called the police and an ambulance. It didn't take long for the police to arrive. A couple of young officers arrived and looked at the scene. There was a conversation between them and the guards. The policeman came up to me and said, "I'm arresting you for assault, grievous bodily harm." That was all he had time to say before another man approached from the side, showing something in his hand. He pointed to the man on the floor and said, "No, you're going to arrest that man on the floor for assault, grievous bodily harm." He attacked this man without provocation, and he was only defending himself. The policeman looked at the man and said, "Yes, sir." The man continued, "And you will collect video footage from the club and video from that guy in the corner with a real camera, not a smartphone," pointing to the man in the corner. That man looked at me and smiled. I recognized his voice. I looked around the room, and there was our consultant with his secretary. Now they were sitting next to each other. I was sure they were brother and sister. He nodded his head and walked to a quiet corner of the bar. I looked at the man with the camera and recognized him as a deputy from a neighboring county. While one of the doctors examined Edel on the floor, the other looked at me and said that my injuries were superficial. A man appeared with a smartphone. "I'm from the Journal. Would you like to comment on what happened? What was the local newspaper doing here?" I thought to myself. She muttered something like no comment. He said, "Sorry, I didn't quite hear. Could you repeat it?" She looked at the reporter and said, "That person lying on the floor isn't worth commenting on. He's all bluff, there's nothing behind him. He's a coward. His performances are just like his performances on the field, flashes of inspiration between lots of running around trying to look good. And you can quote me on this." The consultant beckoned us to the corner where he was sitting with a woman. Now I recognized her as the one who had started the abuse when Linda was going through her path of humiliation, and his secretary. The consultant introduced us. "Let me introduce my sister, Sophie." This confirmed my suspicions. "So, I'm guessing this is all staged," I said, waving my hand around. "Yes, I'm afraid that's mostly true. Let me explain. When I found out what happened from your lawyer, who is a friend of the judge whose wife cheated with Vil, I contacted Linda and offered to help your marriage. I'm not actually a marriage counselor, but I am a psychiatrist. I hope you don't mind. We didn't expect Vil to be here tonight. The team was playing away, so he shouldn't have been here. But something happened. Sorry," he continued to explain. "Vil ruined many lives, and they couldn't find a way to stop him until we intervened. But it didn't go according to plan. There was no intended physical confrontation." Dr. John leaned forward and looked at both of us. "Our priority was to help you get back together, if possible, and to show people that Vil didn't matter and that people could rebuild their lives. We wanted to show that he doesn't mean anything. It all seemed a little far-fetched to me, a little far from the truth. My investigations were correct. There was a judge, an MP, and a senior police officer who, if they took action, it would appear to be an abuse of power. So I was right, it was staged." Then Sophie chimed in. "Yes, but Linda didn't know anything about it. I had to do my part because I know the pain my husband felt when I had one night with Vil. I don't know where he is, he just walked away and left me. I'm desperate to find him, but in the meantime, I'm willing to do anything to help the victims of Vil and to overthrow him." She cried through tears and told us, he chose wives of powerful people so they couldn't take revenge on him because it would look like an abuse of power. He felt safe. He didn't even choose particularly beautiful ones. There are rumors that he began a relationship with the wife of a minor royal who was not particularly attractive, rather plump. She believed Vil was interested in her and left her husband for him. He ignored her, and she ended up in a mental hospital after self-harming. The family was able to hide it mostly. She couldn't continue. Dr. John continued his explanation. He enjoyed cuckolding people who couldn't respond, or they would be accused of abuse of power. The first was the mayor's wife. He resigned shortly after it happened, which was a shame. He was a good man. As soon as he resigned, he divorced her and moved away. Then a deputy from a neighboring district, and Sophie looked down at her lap, crying. Dr. John continued, Sophie's husband was the editor of the local newspaper. Local newspapers cannot do what large multinational companies do. They must cater to local audiences, and he could not publish anything that would slander a local hero. If he did, it would add to his own humiliation. Either way, when Sophie returned home from her night out, Adrian was gone. He just left, and she still doesn't know where he is, although she tries very hard to find him. She hopes that now, with the story out, people will read it and she can get her message across to Adrian. He'll realize what a mistake he made and maybe come home or at least get in touch so we know he's okay. Why do you think he chose Linda? I asked. I'm not sure, but we all think he was tired of playing psychological games and wanted to try something physical. So he saw you are a strong, healthy man, and Linda was beautiful. So he chose you. But he still didn't take any risks because he had his teammates. You were just in the right place at the wrong time. Did you arrange this tonight? I asked. Well, in a way, yeah. Like we said, Vil shouldn't have been here tonight. We wanted a lot of people to see you two enjoying yourselves. I was going to explain this at our next meeting on Wednesday and ask for permission to start featuring you on social media. We didn't warn you because we wanted you to behave naturally and not put on a show if you knew about our plans. I hope you don't mind. I could get seriously hurt by it, so yeah, I guess I mind. In fact, there were 2 people ready to intervene. If he had swung for a 3rd strike, he would have been knocked out. In fact, he should not have had time to strike the first blow, but they could not get through the crowd. He admitted that Vil had taken them by surprise. He usually waited until mid-evening before approaching someone, and he never approached the same woman twice. But as soon as he saw Linda and me, he immediately headed towards us, which shocked them. He apologized. It was getting late, and I needed to think about it all. I looked at Linda. She looked tired but happy. Looking at her, I felt her love, and I think Dr. John was right about dealing with that idiot. But we would see in the morning. We said goodbye, and holding each other, we crossed the dance floor and headed to our room. Stephen and Denise were there. He asked me if I wanted to play golf early in the morning, with a big smile on his face. I smiled back at him and said, "Sorry, buddy, but I think I'll be busy early in the morning." I squeezed Linda. We didn't make love that night, we just cuddled. In the morning, it was different. We almost missed breakfast. There is a large frame hanging on the wall next to the kitchen door. Inside is a piece of a bag with the inscription Sutton Seed Potatoes. Linda said she put it there as a reminder. Every time she looked at it, she felt a little humiliated. A year after the ice cream van incident, I took it down. That was enough. Strangely, the trial did not take very long. Forces about which I had very limited knowledge and over which I had no control intervened. I was called first and asked to talk about that night and the events that led up to it. I told them almost everything from the moment we walked into Red Art and the rest of the evening. Sometimes I was a little vague. It took more than an hour. They showed a video. It started with Vil walking across the dance floor towards us. He seemed to be heading straight towards Linda and me. I thought it had been caught on video earlier, almost as if someone was expecting it. The video was professionally filmed. Linda was called in next and was asked to confirm what I had said. She sat during the interrogation and agreed with everything I said. She cried when she finished. Stephen and Denise were called in turn and agreed with what was said about the attack. The next people called confused me, but at this stage, they were not directly related to the case: the former mayor, his ex-wife Sophie, and a few others I didn't recognize. Advocate Abel constantly objected but was overruled in most cases. The case was decided, he was guilty. The video proved it. The lawyer's job was to reduce his sentence as much as possible. A number of character witnesses were called, but the team's leadership was absent. The prosecutor noted this, along with representatives from charities he supported, but some were noticeably absent. Things were going well until a psychiatrist was called in, who explained that Vil was not to blame for trying to seduce married women. His star status had gone to his head, and he was not prepared for it. It was the fault of those who had not taught him how to cope with stardom, and we should feel sorry for him. However, my lawyer pointed out details of courses available on the subject run by the Football Association, which Vil had signed up for but did not attend. Vil exploded, screaming and shouting, and the court session was interrupted. When it resumed, contempt of court was added to the charges. Sophie's behavior changed in the middle of her testimony. I followed her gaze. Her husband was sitting there. I recognized him from the photo on her desk in John's office, Marcos. Vil received the maximum sentence in prison for grievous bodily harm, fighting, resisting arrest, and contempt of court, 8 years. Because he abused his star status, he'll probably be out in 5 years, unless his arrogance gets the better of him again, in which case he'll serve the full 8 years. His football career is over. His lawyer immediately said he would appeal the verdict. The judge leaned forward and said, "It is your client's right if you think it's reasonable." His tone made it clear that she would be wasting the client's time and money. So she'll probably do it, since he got the maximum sentence. It won't get any worse, and she will get paid. I didn't know about resisting arrest. It turns out that when he went outside, he started screaming at the police, "Do you know who I am?" and started pushing them. There are rumors that batons were used and medics were called. There were also rumors that the deputy commissioner of police and the judge studied at the same university, albeit at different times. As we were leaving the court, a man I had not seen before approached me and extended his hand. He smiled, and for some reason, I shook his hand. "Do you still have your phone?" "Yes." "Keep it charged, but not on. We'll contact you if we need your help again. Your name is now Egbert, by the way." He smiled at me. "Good job, and thank you." "Thank you very much. You made a lot of people happy." After the trial, the local newspaper published the story, a full expose of Vil and his teammates' antics, without mentioning the names of the victims, although some gave permission for their names to be used. When the story was picked up by the national press, our football team didn't get promoted. In fact, they almost got relegated. When Adrian found out how Sophie was involved in bringing down Vil, he contacted her. They are trying to make things work, and it looks like they will succeed. I don't know if the Football Association runs courses on star status management, but a quick Google search showed that such courses are available. Yes, I took some liberties with the English legal system.
Listen to the 2 stories and decide which one is better.
Our story today is about how a cheating wife can hurt, but can also heal. Enjoy the show! Do you really think your new Sequoia can handle steep roads? "This thing is too big," I said, taking another sip of Stan's Wicked Ale and continuing. "Of course, you need leg room under the steering wheel because you're so lanky, but I don't know, Ted. I would never drive one on Turkey Track. I could barely get through there in my old Land Bruiser, which weighs half as much." Toxic late afternoon light seeped through the fig trees, another typical summer day in Los Angeles in the early 21st century. I leaned back on the lounge chair next to Ted. We watched our wives swim in Ted and Alice's backyard pool in bikinis. This time, they didn't grind their teeth at each other. Mountains loomed over our Pasadena neighborhood, choked with smog. "Hey, they told me this thing can go anywhere, and I'm going to test it." Ted drank a Toots Chief Malt and burped loudly. "Yes, I'm ready for Turkey Track. I don't care about these horror films, more power." The worst road in Anza-Borrego Desert State Park, between San Diego and the Salton Sea, includes several climbs that resemble a bird's paw print, hence the name Turkey Track. The best of these steep, nightmarish routes is riddled with huge holes and steep drop-offs, often while slowly crawling upward. Only 3 wheels touch the ground. My cautious wife refuses to go to such places. She gets out of the car and waits until I slide into the abyss. This has never happened before, but for now, listen, Anza-Borrego is not the best place for a test drive. I'm sure you'll never drive through Fat Man in a narrow place. Even a Suzuki Samurai requires a lot of lubrication to slide through the narrow gap between the rocks. I took another sip of Wicked Ale and hoped Ted would at least think about this logical argument. Ted opened a new can of Toots Chief and took a big sip. "Okay, smart guy, where do you suggest we go for Memorial Day weekend? And don't tell me we can look at the Angelic Cross, it's the route of the weaklings, and it's always packed with weaklings and jeeps, samurai, and soldiers." Ted's wife Alice, a respected colleague of mine and a damn good circuit engineer, floated lazily over to us. If you have a problem with weaklings, sweet Teddy, it's your own fault. Meaning, my wife naturally dark-skinned Carol also swam up to us. Hey, we need to give him a break, honey, she turned and looked at Ted, then turned to me. So tell us, Bobby, what track are you suggesting? Something not too boring for a holiday, right? I thought for a moment about how to calm Ted down. I know the right place east of Palm Springs. There are excellent trails to abandoned mines in the Cholla Mountains. They're tough enough to pose a challenge, but they're unlikely to kill us. I took another sip of beer. Most of the area is official wilderness managed by the BLM, but we can use existing roads and dry riverbeds to get to Cholla. Sounds good, Alice said. Yes, it's really very beautiful there, Carol agreed. What an agreement between these two. Miracle two couples by the pool. We are Bob and Carol, they are Ted and Alice. We are friends and neighbors here in Pasadena. Alice and I work together. We all caravan together in our SUVs, our kids play together, go to the same school, and on this already muggy Sunday afternoon, we are having fun at Carol's parents' house in Burbank, in the Valley. We're raising the next generation of Valley girls. Rough as can be, man, are we best friends? Not really, rather close acquaintances with common interests, such as their swimming pool. We mostly got along with each other, and that's good. Making new friends is hard work. If only Carol weren't so bossy and Ted so unreliable. Meanwhile, we adults had time for ourselves this afternoon and evening. There is not much privacy in this suburban area. The homeowners association doesn't allow high fences, skinny dipping is only allowed after dark, and even then, you have to constantly keep an eye out for nosy neighbors, damn prudes. So, we spend our time wisely, relaxing, joking, flirting, getting a little drunk, talking nonsense, and making plans and fantasies. Ted and I were arguing about our future trip. I'm not sure the women plan to do anything more than just come with us, look pretty, and make fun of each other every chance they got. As usual, we plan a 4-day getaway for Memorial Day. Will it be fun? Ted traded in his 4x4 4Runner for this new Sequoia last week and was very determined to test it out, as though he even knew what that meant, although Ted was a normal real estate broker. As an SUV driver, he suffered from the illusion of sufficiency. In fact, the Angel's Cross would be a better choice for him, but his ego would never allow him to even think about it. At least he still remembered his first aid training from his time in the Army, so he wasn't completely useless on our trips. Our alcohol-fueled poolside get-togethers also led to some arguments: who would bring what, how much, who was responsible for food and equipment, and the eternal personal clashes. I'm focused, I said, and Ted is relaxed and carefree. Carol is dominant, and Alice doesn't take any crap. I don't take orders from you, Carol. Leave this to your subordinates, Alice was furious. Carol just naturally took charge whenever she could. This is the reason, not the effect, that she runs her media marketing agency, and this was the result of her legacy. Carolina Silla Ortega is a descendant of an old Spanish family that lived in California before it became part of Mexico. Her father, Sarah, founded the California missions in the late 1700s. Carol's ancestors were with him. Hidalgo families cultivate arrogance, and it doesn't help modesty that Carol's parents were Hollywood studio bosses and she grew up as a privileged Valley girl. She ruthlessly uses her old group, Val Gal, in her business. She knows exactly how to play the networking game. I love her to death, but sometimes she drives me crazy. Drives everyone else crazy, too. Pro or contra? Guys go crazy for her beautiful body until she starts barking orders. Do not cross paths with her. My origins are almost as high. I'm Roberto Pico Ortega, and my family once owned most of what is now Greater Los Angeles, before all the Spanish and Mexican lands were stolen by the gringos. Oh, okay, this is history. I won't be the lizard who brags that his grandfather was a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Okay, it's officially dark now. Take off your swimsuits, Carol called, always ready to show off her lean, wheat-colored body at the slightest pretext. Alice frowned a little, but her tiny pieces of her swimsuit immediately ended up on the ground. I stole a glance at Alice's full, freckled breasts. Ted's shorts and mine quickly followed the girls' swimsuits. We sat back on our sun loungers. Carol caught my gaze and said, "So, Bobby, are we going to swim some more, or are you going to have intimacy with me again?" "What, again?" I joked, pulling her lips to mine. "Yes, again, but first you need to get wet." Carol's executive voice did not tolerate any objections. Ted laughed until Alice used a jiu-jitsu technique and drowned him. The darkness made the pool safe for playing. I was pushed away while Ted and Alice tickled Carol. I returned and gave Alice a friendly pat on the 5th place. I expected Ted to do the same to Carol. That was about as far as our illicit actions went. Even if the girls were drinking Chardonnay, well, maybe a little more unintentional breast pinching, but not betrayal. "No. We can do better," she said, shifting her position. The moment seemed endless. Meanwhile, Alice and Ted, having regained their energy, switched places and continued with equal passion. I could feel the atmosphere between us all heating up. The women didn't seem to mind. The longer the moment lasted, the more enjoyable it became for all of us. The alarm clock rang. It's time to get dressed and pick up the kids. Crap, another work week has begun. Alice and I commuted together to work at Lunadyne, a small aerospace firm near Tech and NASA JPL. My Beamer buzzed along I-210 at an impressive 10 miles per hour, with emissions up to 15 in the fastest sections. Damn, how I hate Monday mornings. I am the chief hot exhaust engineer at Lunadyne, developing jet and rocket exhausts. Alice is a super-duper circuit designer who designs and develops prototypes of electronic control systems. She's a brilliant techie, a lovely redhead, and a great hiker, but her fiery temperament and limited social skills leave much to be desired. She's not mean enough to be the boss. We have one engineering truth: those who know how to design, design; those who don't know how to design, manage those who don't know how to manage engineers. I've heard this to be true in other technical fields as well. Alice and I are housemates. We work together, have lunch together, commute together, skinny dip together, and play with our companions. We don't have affairs with each other. No affairs. We're not talking about poolside intimacy. I mean, we were both there. So why? Our conversations during trips were about work, what our teams were doing, political, religious, social, economic, and cultural things, how humanity destroys itself, and our trips on 4 wheels, past and future. Nice, safe themes. Are you ready for summer to start? Alice took a sip of her mocha and looked at me. And you really think Ted is ready for a rough ride in Anza? Not for the world, but in the Cholia Mountains, yes. The roads I'm referring to look rough but are in much better condition. They have to support the weight of the Sequoia. Ted has been nurturing the idea of turning our old 4Runner into a new toy for months, and now he has this big Sequoia, bought with my money, and he's just crazy to try it. Yes, try it for himself, as if off-road riding is important for his masculinity, as if it confirms his dignity. But he doesn't like nature very much. She took another sip of mocha. Alice and I both had scouting experiences when we were younger. We had survival skills and improvisation skills. We're engineers, damn it, we build things. Carol and Ted have been privileged city dwellers their entire lives. They seem to have a common motto: let someone else do it. That's why they run their offices and delegate the dirty work. I'm not a cowboy, I just bought a hat. Ted rides rough roads to prove he's a tough guy. To do this, he needs a tough car, so he buys one. But this is not enough. I sang again, but a completely different song, but he doesn't have cowboy lips. Alice giggled. Well, yeah, and you have those caballero lips. Same thing. But look where it got you. She pouted at me. Where I ended up with my Carolina, the girl of my dreams, I laughed. Not so bad right now. Alice sighed. Oh, come on, spare me. I know she has an amazing body, but how can you stand this bossy woman who considers herself the commander-in-chief of all damn Pasadena? She commands me all the time. Calmly, take a deep breath, hold your breath, exhale slowly, inhale slowly, that's it, that's it. Oh, you buddy, she said expressionlessly. I only see her from time to time, and you're always with her. I'm not complaining, I said, raising the air conditioner temperature by 1 degree. The day was getting hot. Hey, am I bothering you with your useless husband? Ted's firm bore his name, but he did little, if any, visible work there. He was officially a broker, but his staff kept the office afloat while he played golf or squash with clients or otherwise performed important management duties. Yeah, well, Alice admitted, Ted does lead a pretty easy life, but he's really good with kids and has a lot of time for them, running errands. Maybe he's a little insecure since I'm the main breadwinner. You men have such fragile egos. Yeah, okay, I said. Let's make a truce. How do you like it? We were back in the safe realm of talking about work. I doubt either of us got much work done that week, in early summer, before Memorial Day 2001. Oh sure, we worked hard, but mostly on the planning and logistics of our trip. Alice and I made lists of equipment and sent our companions shopping for the necessary items. Most likely, they sent their workers to do the actual purchasing. That's what workers are for, right? Our children tried not to notice us as usual, but we also forced them to work. I'll go through the checklist one more time. Dolly, start with. Why should I do this? Whined my youngest daughter, Dolores. I need to do my homework. And you'll take care of it right after we're done here, I said firmly. I sometimes think that my daughters are socially backward. They haven't yet learned to manipulate their parents. What's wrong with children today? But you always make me do everything. My little drama queen whined. Why can't Rosalita do this? Because Rosalita is helping your mom with her list. We are equal oppressors, you know. So stop complaining and start with your camping gear, tent. I don't care about your stupid tent, she grumbled. Check the tent, I said firmly. The sooner we're done, the sooner you can do your homework, watch TV, play games, and call your friends. Yes, you can whine to them about how we're keeping you down, but first, tent. Okay, yeah, it's the Sierra Designs tent, the one that smells like moldy nylon crap, I mean junk. Watch your language, I said. Okay, what about posts, pegs, rain flies, and bedding? Yeah, it's all here. All this stuff. Okay, there's a dozen metal pegs, and none of the posts look bent, and so on. Point by point, we checked the camping gear, tools, spare parts, and necessities for the Land Cruiser. Carol and Rosalita probably did the same with kitchen equipment, medical kits, clothing, and supplies. I double-checked the cards and electronics myself. Alice was just as meticulous as I was, and no doubt her own children, Suzanne and Carrie, were going through the same process, except that Daddy Ted wouldn't be much help. Oh sure, he'd pretend to check out all the functions of his new 4x4, but he avoided any real work or worry. Let someone else do it was easy for him. The children would once again stay with Carol's parents, taking all the pets with them, no dogs, cats, ferrets, or iguanas on this trip. Each couple brought tents and bedding, folding tables and chairs, food, enough water, and extra gasoline, various tools, and portable VHF radios as backup to cell phones. Connectivity and GPS would be spotty in steep, narrow canyons, and radio time is free, while cell phone talk time is not. Non-perishable items were listed and loaded as checkpoints were completed. Careful organization, engineering style, is how adventure becomes survivable. Pay attention to reality, I muttered. Ah, reality, what is reality? Alice asked. Reality is a crutch, I said. The definition of an old hippie. Who needs reality if you have a good fantasy? Reality is a clutch, I added. A friend has an ancient van with an unreliable gearbox, and this message is emblazoned on his dashboard. Reality is what remains after you stop believing in it. This should be obvious. Does gravity disappear if you don't believe in it? No. Reality is what bites you in the fifth place. If it affects you, then it is real. Otherwise, why worry about it? I always choose the definition of biting you in the fifth place when planning off-road trips, just as I do when designing turbos and exhaust systems. Injury and death definitely bite your fifth place. Checking and packing went slowly and easily over several days and evenings. We were loaded, fueled, and ready by Thursday night. We all agreed on a shortened workday on Friday so we could start early. We looked into our offices, leafed through the documents, had a quick lunch, and left. It was very easy for Carol and Ted, who only had to give orders. Alice and I were stars at Lunadine, so we had no problems either. We easily opened the door to summer. Our little caravan set off just after noon, after the usual domestic squabbles. Ted and Carol both deserved pet tattoos on their foreheads, real BS, definitely. It was early enough in the afternoon that we didn't have to fight through hundreds of miles of traffic. We made it nice and easy to the edge of the urban area, at the far end of San Bernardino and Redlands, just a couple of drivers worth yelling at, just a couple of trucks that tried to kill us. Carol was typing on her little Sony Vaio laptop as we drove, chatting about life, the kids, their schooling, our friends, that sort of thing. A little talking, a little keyboarding. "This is the Little Mac project," she said. "That's what we call it." We contracted with the California Macadamia Council to develop a marketing plan to make macadamia the world's most popular nut. Peanuts are down, but almonds are up, as are pistachios. It's competition. "You must be out of your mind if you want to get this job," I joked. She gave me a not funny grin. Okay. You've heard this before. Macadamia. Seriously, do they even grow in California? Yes, they're growing, but not much. Most of them are from Australia, then Hawaii, then Central America and other places. The council believes increasing demand for macadamia nuts from anywhere will help local farmers. This is our job. "I'm just trying to come up with ideas," she said, tapping the keys again. "Well, they're delicious, of course, but there are also a lot of other things that don't sell that well," I said, jerking the steering wheel slightly to get around a slow pickup truck. "It's not just cocktail nuts and snacks. They make pasta, flour, and," she paused, "you must try the honey macadamia pancakes. Poppy milk, poppy oil, macaroni cheese. This one's not so good, macaroni candies. Yes, all sorts of different things. But there's not much public awareness about all this. Yes, that's our job, to attract attention and awareness." "So, you're developing an advertising strategy. It's not like your normal trick." "No, not traditional advertising. The Macadamia Council wanted some cute slogans, like Mac Snack Attack or I'm excited about Mac. Really stupid things on TVs and billboards. This is the 20th century. No, we'll do a viral campaign on the internet. We will create friendly, relaxed blogs. We'll carefully infiltrate newsgroups, forums, and chats, but no spam, no garbage. This is chicken, let's make it feel spontaneous, organic, with recipe clubs and ideation sessions. All very unobtrusive. And this will only be an online campaign. Has anyone tried this before? Some have tried. We monitor how others are trying to do this. The nice thing is that it's really, really cheap. No expensive media costs, no mass targeting. It's more about creating an atmosphere, building an environment where macadamia is a given, a basic product. Macadamia is on every shopping list. And how do you build an atmosphere? I looked at the thick smog surrounding us and imagined nutty steam. There are millions of possible approaches, and we can try all of them, almost for free. Each tactic gets its test, change a few words and images, and measure the reaction. Leave what works and throw away what doesn't. Our software generates automatic posts that feel personalized. The AI program reads the responses, corrects the answers, or calls for human help. These are really the only expenses, and we take them abroad. She tapped on the keys again. We were surrounded by high mountains when we were interrupted. Carol picked up the VHF radio from the dashboard. "Say it again, Alice." "I didn't catch it." "I said we could use a break. Let's stop at the dinosaurs in Kazan." "Got it. We'll take the Cabazon exit. Meet me under the Brontosaurus." Well, I said. It was actually a 150-foot-long concrete apatosaurus. There's no such thing as a brontosaurus, but that's what it was called when it was built. I drove our sandy beige Land Cruiser to the restrooms. Ted's red Sequoia pulled up right behind us. The women jumped out and headed to the toilets, while Ted and I stretched out and looked at the dinosaurs, Big D and the tall T-Rex. Cabazon is almost a village, nestled in a deep gap between the high mountain ranges of San Bernardino to the north and San Jacinto to the south. Dinosaurs dominated the highway side for decades, until the Morongo band of Cahuilla Indians built a multi-story casino resort nearby. "I'll never forget the first time I stopped here with Alice," Ted said, taking a sip from his soda can and waving at Denny. "This was before our wedding. I took her with me to a real estate conference in Palm Springs. We got here from Los Angeles, and she needed a break, just like today." She finished, and we walked up the stairs to the gift shop inside Denny's belly. There was no one there. Ted gestured again at the huge beast. Alice was hot. Very hot. We were caressing each other while I was driving, so she just took off her panties, and I had intimacy with her right inside the dinosaur. He laughed. "And now there's a creationist museum here. These guys are really stupid, but it suits me because they're not too critical about the terms of the contract. Damn, how I love selling to such fanatical fundamentalist Gitanics. They'll believe anything, even when he's right and funny. Ted can be annoying." Alice came out of the restroom looking slightly annoyed but not completely angry. Carol appeared a moment later, walking more slowly. I guessed that their quarrel inside wasn't too unpleasant. Why did I assume that they had fought? Because they did it often, two alpha females and no submission. We returned to our cars. I took the lead again, and Carol began to speak. I raised my hand. "I don't want to hear it. Just stop attacking Alice." Carol opened her mouth, but I waved my hand again. "No, just no." She returned solemnly to her VO. The sun was high and shining strongly as we crossed Whitewater Pass, a 2-mile gap in the coastal mountains, and descended past sweltering Palm Springs into the Colorado Desert region below sea level. We passed through checkpoints, Desert Hot Springs, Palm Desert, and Indio, stopping at a gas station and grabbing date milkshakes. Then, once again above sea level, we went through the Cahuilla Pass into the Coachella Valley, south to the fork in the Mine Road before Desert Center. And here we are. We stopped at a gravel crossing near a barn. Everyone got out to warm up, breathe in some summer dust, and assess the situation. I waved to Ted, the map laid out on the hood of my Land Cruiser. He approached with a theatrical, but completely unnecessary, swagger. "Where's the path, chap?" I asked. Ted closed his eyes and looked around. The sun was behind us. "Native," I gestured southeast and grinned. Ted either didn't know or didn't care that native meant idiot in Spanish. I pointed to the map. "We'll take the Red Cloud M Trail and head into the Cahuilla Mountains. The trail behind the mine is difficult but passable, and I know a good place to camp. Of course, we still have 3 or 4 hours of daylight, but the sooner we get down tonight, the sooner we can start in the morning." "Great." I brought some smoke. "Yes, we'll have a real party," Alice responded to her husband's statement with a slight roll of her eyes. We die-hard engineers smoked a little to relax, of course we did, but our executive partners smoked a little more for excitement. I thought to myself, Ted better not be too smitten in the morning when we're driving on difficult trails. We climbed back into the cars and drove into the desert mountains. I led us past skinny, prickly cacti, jumping chalice, and majestic prickly pear cacti, spreading green croton and yucca bushes up a steep trail through narrow, deep gorges to a wide, flat area where Carol and I had stopped before. I parked in a familiar spot next to the fire pit. Ted followed. I chose this place based on the realtor rule: location, location, location. Open but private, no one can sneak up on us. Yes, it made a difference for privacy, but mostly it was in direct line of sight to the cell tower at Cahuilla Pass. We called home to say we had arrived safely. That's it. "It's starting," Carol screamed as she jumped out of the Land Cruiser. "We're back in nature, so let's all be naturists. I need to feel the air." She pulled her loose shorts and panties over her hiking boots and threw off her bikini top. "Damn, this is so great," she looked great too. I took off my t-shirt and shorts, leaving only my climbing boots. Ted quickly followed suit. Carol and Alice winced slightly but also shed their clothes. Her pale, freckled Celtic skin couldn't handle much direct sun, but this late evening light was soft. I've done my share of looking at our ladies too. We set up quick opening tents, laid out tables and chairs, and set up a minimal kitchen, slapping bare asses as they walked by. The camp had been set. I joined her in the dance. Ted placed a box under the table full of wine coolers and beer. Alice handed out drinks to everyone and danced around Ted, her long, straight hair flowing like cherry cider. The sun sank behind the high western mountains as we, nudists, tumbled and howled. The cool wind in the shaded areas forced us all to wear light, long-sleeved shirts. Ted and Alice prepared a hot dinner while Carol and I built a fire using compressed wood. No, we would not burn local vegetation. Dinner was fine. The cool desert morning wind was not conducive to play. We all emerged from the tents in tracksuits and rumpled smiles. Alice lit the Coleman gas stove to boil water for Mexican mocha, instant coffee, cocoa, and tequila. Ted made us some hearty burritos, breakfast of champions. We warmed ourselves by the morning fire, and after Ted and Carol chatted about business, we continued talking about the day ahead. Carol's folding chair sat next to mine. It was a great race last night and this morning, Bobby. Where are we going today? I laughed. You do most of the racing, baby. I'm just your little pony. And today we'll ride into the sunset or something. Alice put her hand on Ted's thigh. Hello, Silver, she whispered. Don't be a lonely stranger. Ted laughed and squeezed his wife's breast. Oh, I just love going down into a dark canyon, he said. Hell, even with ambushes. Well, guys, once you're safely out of the love mine, we'll try a different kind of rough ride, I said. I waved the compass in the air. Where we're going is basically an area with no cell service or GPS. As soon as we leave the camp, the phones will die, and any wall above 45 degrees will block satellites and GPS, so let's keep our VHF radios on. We can send obscene signals back and forth, as long as we're not too disconnected. Alice, you can talk dirty about that XJ90 project that excites you. Carol slapped my hand. Try this and you'll learn more than you ever wanted to know about macadamia nuts. I think they make oil for intimate lotions. Jokes, banter, and giggles rang out as we broke camp. Our gear was folded and packed, firmly secured to withstand the rough roads. The trash was burned, and the coals from the fire were carefully extinguished with urine. The only traces we left were cold ashes and disturbed dust. We are responsible tourists. The day was fun. We raced along broken, dry riverbeds and along difficult rocky paths to old mines and adits. We had to chain our SES to get over some steep, muddy spots and broken chasms. We got dirty. We didn't worry about clothing during the hot day, other than wearing sturdy shoes and towels tied to the car seats to absorb sweat and liquids. We wandered around in the full sun at every stop, hooray! And somehow, we avoided falling into the cactus thickets. By evening, we were all sweaty, dirty, and exhausted. As we settled into our new campsite, the shower we installed at camp was very useful, like the tequila sunrise dessert and hard, noisy intimacy after dinner. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Our new camp was in direct line of sight to a cell tower, so we called home to check on the condition. Carol's parents handled the children's minor crises with their usual aplomb. Nobody really noticed us. Carol and Ted connected their mini laptops to USB cellular adapters and contacted their office servers to transfer emails and notes. Everything was calm. Well, everything was calm except for the weather forecast. We had received a warning of a storm rising from the southeast, a monsoon a month early. Rains usually arrive from the Gulf of Mexico in early July in Tucson. Tradition is dry on the 4th, wet on the 5th, but not this year. Looks like those guys talking about climate change were right. The forecast was that it wouldn't reach us until late on Memorial Day, after we headed back. So, no problem, right? Problems could wait until tomorrow. Oh, that's the problem, I said. Coyotes howled in the distance. Strange lights blinked, and there were fires in the sky. Distant roars and blows could be heard. This wasn't surprising. We were camped north of a shooting range in the Chocolate Mountains, where the military practiced bombing and strafing anything they could get their hands on. The strobes were flashing. The coyotes howled again. Summer beetles flew and crawled. Navy and Marine pilots flew overhead. I don't know about you, but I find that kind of flash and rumble exciting, Carol said. Even more flashes and roars in the sky, and howls and roars in the distance, translated into even greater noise and roars on the ground. Dawn came earlier than yesterday. This camp was located on the eastern slope of the Chula and caught the glimmer of the sun rising over the expanse of the Sonoran Desert, stretching more than 100 kilometers to the invisible Colorado River on the western shore of Arizona. The quiet calls of desert thrushes, nightjars, and doves echoed all around us. We dressed lightly in shorts and t-shirts for another breakfast of champions. We packed up camp and drove up the mountain, over the saddleback, onto the western slope, into a tight network of deep rocky cuts, under the creepy Joshua trees and massive ironwood trees, just below the zone of pinyon pines and junipers. Descending a steep, sandy riverbed, I misjudged the turn. We slid and hit a hard granite block of quartz monzonite. I pressed the gas pedal, the engine responded, but the car did not move. Oops! At that moment, Ted and Alice's Sequoia were ahead. I honked my horn to get their attention. Ted backed up carefully. We all stood up and surveyed the situation. Smart move, smart guy, Ted grumbled. I had to agree. Let me take a look, I said. I slid under the car. The oil pan looked fine, as did everything else, except for the driveshaft spider. It was broken. Crap, I muttered. I crawled out from under the car and delivered the bad news. You took the tools and spare parts, right? Carol demanded. Tools? Yes, lots. Spare parts? Yes. But there's no spare crosspiece, I said. I could maybe put it together if we had welding equipment, but we don't. I felt a pang of sadness. What about soldering? Alice asked. You brought a soldering kit, didn't you? Yes, it's there, Ted said. But will the soldered cross hold up? I thought about it for a moment. No, not with really rough use. It will likely handle a fairly smooth ride as long as it isn't pushed too hard. No sudden starts or stops, just even pressure. But you may have to drag us back to I-10, or at least to the last descent. Once we get there, it's only a few miles to Desert Center. I can find a replacement for the cross there. You better get out the soldering kit, Ted, Carol ordered. We don't want to be stuck here all day. Yes, Your Highness. Now, Your Majesty, Ted mumbled and grumbled as he rummaged around in the back of the Sequoia. I muttered to myself as I removed the hydraulic jacks and toolbox from their hiding places. We raised the damaged Land Cruiser on the jack. I slid under it. Alice handed me instruments the way a nurse hands surgical clamps and scalpels. Removing the broken part was easier than I expected because a strong, cool wind rose from the southeast. The wind was very refreshing, even damp. Oops! I got out. Alice helped me up. Ted and Carol stood a short distance away, talking quietly. I looked up at the increasing cloudiness in the sky. Alice's eyes followed mine. Is this what it looks like? Alice asked. Yes, I replied. She came to the same conclusion I had. The monsoon is blowing too early, isn't it? A drop of rain hit my forehead. Another fell on her glasses. She automatically wiped away the moisture. Even more rain soaked the girls' t-shirts, who were not wearing bras underneath. I think I better get to work, I said, cleaning and soldering the parts. It didn't take much time. The connected part hissed, cooling under the occasional drops of rain. I covered it with a piece of cactus to protect it from the increasing rain. Hey, guys, I called to Ted and Carol. Conference time is over. We need to get out of this riverbed now. They looked at me questioningly. I nodded at the clouds above the peaks, which were creeping towards us. This is the time and place for flash floods. Ted, take the chains. Let's see, I said, looking around and then pointing to a hill 100 yards away. We'll be safe up there, but we need to move. It was a little difficult, but we chained the cars together and secured the cable from the Sequoia's front winch to a thick old iron tree halfway up the slope. Four-wheel drive plus a winch were enough to pull the Land Cruiser out of the riverbed and almost to the anchor tree. Just in time, we heard a rumble, almost like one of yesterday's passing planes, but much closer and louder. The ground shook, the rock embankments rumbled, and then hell fell upon us. A seething, roaring stream surged, waves of muddy water carried boulders, uprooted bushes, tree debris, the bodies of barrel cacti, and even an antelope. 90 seconds ago, we would have been swept away by this whirlpool too. I looked at Carol in the passenger seat. Her natural tan had turned almost albino pink. "Oh, crap," she whispered. That was pretty close, wasn't it? In fact, I wasn't particularly concerned about myself. The radio crackled. I pressed the "How's it going, buddy?" Ted's voice came through, joking, but there was a slight tension. "Everything is fine now. And thank you for your help. But we better get up even higher to that flat area so I can get back under the car and put everything back together. There's a big pine tree up there we can anchor to." A few minutes later, we were pulled out and taken to a stable place. The storm clouds passed over the peaks. The wind and rain stopped, and the clouds cleared. Spots of sunlight filtered through. We stood together in this sudden silence. "Well, damn, that was exciting," Alice said. "What now?" I asked. "We're not going anywhere for at least an hour," I said. "This will be enough time to make sure that we aren't washed away again and for the sand to dry out and become hard enough for driving." Carol and I thought about that before we came up here. Ted said your soldered cross may or may not hold up. Now, this waterway leads directly to the Red Cloud Mine Trail, right? We thought we could go to the parts store in Desert Center and buy a new one. They only cost a few bucks, right? And if we're going to do it, it better be today. Tomorrow is a holiday, and most places will be closed. I thought about it for a moment. Yes, that sounds reasonable. But maybe you should take Alice. Why does Carol have to come with you? Alice asked. Because it was my idea, and besides, I haven't ridden in the Sequoia yet. My wife sounded determined. Alice looked at Carol, then at me. "Oh, let them go," she said, though I thought maybe she was annoyed by having to listen to their business and entertainment conversations. I hesitated, but it looked like I had been out-argued. "Okay, let me find the part number. Take an original part, not a Chinese one, and keep the radio on, just in case." We set up a tarp canopy on the back of the Land Cruiser and unfolded a table and chairs. We made ourselves comfortable while we waited. I walked down to the riverbed and stepped onto the compacted sand, testing it. It seemed to be quite dense. The water had stopped flowing an hour ago. I returned to the others. "No, tell me," I replied. I didn't have any warnings. "They want to spend time together, to have intimacy," I said. I probably had the classic open-mouth expression. "What? Cheating on us?" Alice's face twisted in disbelief. I shook my head. "That's what this weekend is about. They planned it, not damage, of course, but they knew they'd find an excuse to leave together and be alone." Alice looked sad but convinced. "What makes you think they're planning something?" Ted is a little sloppy with email and passwords and computer security in general. He sends emails to the delete folder and empties the trash. He even defragments the drive but doesn't clean it, so they're easy to recover. In addition to being a wonderful circuit engineer, Alice was also a DOS, Windows, and Unix guru. She knew the stuff inside and out, especially about security and encryption. Some of the little things Ted did and said made me suspicious. Hacking his laptop was child's play. "I'm sure there are marks on Carol's too," I added. "Do you want to watch?" My insides were beginning to churn, not from hunger. Did I want to see evidence of the infidelity of the woman I had loved my whole life? Did I want to know that I had been betrayed? Not really. But I thought it was better to look. Let's see if she left it in the car. Carol had taken her bag but not her laptop. I turned it on, and Alice took over, playing the keyboard like a maestro. "What's her usual password?" "She seems to mostly use her date of birth, October 20th, 65, I said. "Okay, let's see. Oh yeah, here's her email." Nothing strange. Let me restore her letters from the last couple of weeks. Tip-top, Alice muttered as she scrolled through. Yeah, there are a bunch of letters from and to Ted, but they are encrypted with a different password. Alice tried several password cracking schemes. Maybe my date of birth? I suggested. Wait, I have an idea, she said, pressing the keys again and quietly exclaiming, I found it. Guess what? She used Ted's date of birth. She scrolled through the decrypted messages on the screen. It was all there. In the glow of the LCD screen, conspiracies, plans, love notes. It seemed like they had been purposefully seducing each other, and they had been having intimacy for at least a few weeks now. There were also references to a project that could lead to some legal issues, but none of the letters contained details of the project. What is this project? Alice muttered quietly, almost under her breath. Let me look at the My Documents folder, she typed. No, nothing there. Nothing obvious. Where else could this be? She ran her finger across the Explorer window. Oh, yes, a flash drive. I wonder what's on it. A few more keystrokes, and one more aha. Ted's password again. Yes, and then. Alice glanced up at me as we read together. Our heads almost collided. We both looked at the screen. Ted's clients and Carol's clients, fraud plans, Alice read aloud. Plans to empty their accounts and transfer money to offshore banks, plans to follow the money outside the S, plans to simply abandon their families. Alice shook her head. I knew Ted had some kind of scheme, but I never expected something like this. I've never found anything like this on his laptop. I'm sure they both keep their sensitive data on flash drives. Nothing on their servers or hard drives. If Carol had taken the flash drive out, we would never have known. She looked at me. As long as they kept their computers offline when the flash drives were inserted and removed them before connecting, then no amount of searching would ever have discovered this. The highest data transmission security is simply handing someone a flash drive. I was overcome with paranoia. They don't think they can just get away with it, do they? No, Alice replied. They must have some kind of backup plan. A scapegoat who will be framed. Are we in danger? Her eyes locked onto mine. Do you think they'll try to set us up? Wouldn't you think so? I asked. Yes, she said, and the paranoia cut deep into me. Alice returned to the keyboard. I'll look in the later files. Yeah, here they are, she muttered. Damn, this is a setup. She pointed at the screen. They will pass all the stolen money through our personal accounts and then arrange their disappearance, but with traces indicating that we staged the fraud and got rid of our innocent spouses when they began to suspect. They're leaving for Rio. We're going to prison. Nice. A hurricane of thoughts rushed through my head. This wasn't rocket science, it was worse. Do you want to know what I thought and felt at that moment? A mixture of unformed explosions in my mind, a whirlwind of emotions swirling inside me. This can't happen, echoed through the empty corridors of my hopes, rumbling in my stomach almost to the point of nausea, confusion, pain. I looked at Alice. As you asked before, what now? I said. Well, I think our happy marriages are over. Kaput, she replied. What can we do? Contact the police? If Ted and Carol get arrested, they'll spend all our money on lawyers. We'll be penniless and our kids, hell, I don't even know. I don't have family here like you do. No support. She looked the saddest I'd ever seen her. I touched her chin. We are engineers. Let's structure the problem and possible paths, right? She nodded. 0, I continued. So it is, given that our satellites are lost to us, and they are planning to set us up in a big way. No matter what we do, divorce is inevitable. What else? We can report them to the police, and like you said, they'll ruin us. We can tell them we know what they're up to and just kick them out. Then they can fight over child custody and property division and all that, but they'll still bankrupt us. Can we try to shut down their business? Put them out of business? I left the thought unspoken, but Alice understood my face. No, no violence, no physical attacks. It's not even the last option. I sighed. I could never physically harm Carol anyway, no matter what she planned or did. I loved her too much. I saw similar feelings flash across Alice's face, her lips, her cheeks, her eyes. I sighed again, but the image remained in my brain like a film soaked in death. Alice and me, waiting on the slope, the sequoia rising again along the riverbed, pushing a bunch of stones. The car rolls down, crushing our changing companions. What a tragedy. But no, we can't do that. I tried to be logical again. Okay, what are our immediate options? Should we report them now or wait until we get home? Shall we try to send a message, maybe to Luna, something that will keep us safe, to show that we know what's going on? I felt like I was grasping at straws. Alice perked up. This is a good start. Can we see a cell tower? We can call our offices. It's a holiday weekend, so all calls will go straight to voicemail. We can say we found out, then if anything happens to us, there'll be a trail to follow. And if there are arrests, we will have it all documented. I have extra flash drives. I'll copy everything, and we'll have even more evidence. Great idea, I said, but we still need to get out of here safe and sound. So we have to act stupid when they come back. Everything's fine for now. We'll behave as usual. But yes, you need to make advanced calls. Start copying all the letters and notes. I'll try to find a good signal. I checked the topographic map. I knew our location roughly, and the map showed a direct line to a cell tower from a nearby hollow just a few hundred feet above us. I see a good option, I shouted to Alice as I walked up the slope. I held my Nokia phone like a water-searching rod, trying to catch the flow. Not a single bar. I rose higher, but not a single bar. I reached the saddle, but still nothing. Maybe at the top of one side of the saddle, I thought. I climbed onto a pile of stones. The pile of granite boulders rose 25 feet above the surface of the slope. Many of the boulders were 10 feet across, and prickly pear cacti protruded from some of the cracks. I carefully climbed to the top and pulled the phone out of my pocket. 1 bar. I shouted. Then I screamed something unintelligible when I turned around. The stone pile had shifted. That is, the huge pile of rocks I had climbed on had decided to move to another place, down, and I was with it. It's a very strange feeling. Everything around you is silent, you are standing on top of the world, and then the world goes away and you fall. And the world falls with you, not small grains of sand, but huge pieces of the world, most of them much larger than you and capable of turning you into strawberry puree in an instant. I tumbled down this rock pile, with boulders as my dance partners. Pain. I expected to hear nothing, just oblivion. But this did not happen. When sound reappeared, I heard a crash around me. I didn't hear my ankle crack. I heard myself mutter, "Oh, do you believe in miracles?" Until this moment, I didn't really believe it. After that moment, I was alive, conscious, and unbruised, lying on a rough sandy hill completely unharmed except for a numb, broken ankle. Miracle. Alice ran up the hill to where I was lying. "Bobby." "Oh, Bobby," she sobbed. She threw herself on the ground next to me. "Bobby, please be alive. Please don't be dead." "Oh, Bobby, Bobby." I looked from the nearest peak to her tear-stained face. "I'm not dead, Alice. I'm not even seriously injured. But my ankle is broken, that's all. I think, calm down." "Oh, damn, Bobby." I heard that crash, and I looked up, and you were falling along with those huge stones. I thought you were definitely dead. You're my best friend, Bobby. I can't lose you. "Oh, damn, Bobby." Alice pulled herself together and sat up. She stood, brushed the sand off her denim shorts and the open shirt she had thrown over her damp t-shirt. She wasn't wearing a bra. "You can't stay here. I'll take you down to the Land Cruiser." "Maybe, yes, if you can support me on one leg." We walked slowly down the hill to the car, hopping on my good leg with my arm around Alice's shoulders, taking one shaky step at a time. A couple of times, we almost fell into the prickly pear thickets. I carefully sat down in the folding chair, and Alice lifted my legs onto another chair so they were elevated as I leaned back. It almost felt like a vacation. You can't stay here either. I'll set up camp and help you into the tent. You need to lie down, away from the sun and weather, until they return. Alice moved with the equipment and soon had me settled in the tent, my feet on inflatable pads, my head near the doorway. She sat down on the ground next to me. You're lucky. Besides the fact that you weren't crushed into a pancake, I mean. But I remember enough first aid from my Girl Scout days. Your legs are elevated, you're not in shock, your skin isn't sticky, your pupils aren't constricted, only pain, she said as she rummaged through her medical bag. Okay, here are the painkillers. It's better not to drink them with tequila. I swallowed the pills with Gatorade, but now we could only wait. Ted was a medic in the army, he'll know what to do with you. Remember, we have to act normal. Don't give them any reason to be suspicious, Alice said. We waited, chatted, made plans, and waited some more. The sun had passed its zenith. It felt like summer had arrived. Ted and Carol had been gone for 5 hours. I could understand that the drive to Desert Center and back would take an hour each way, but 3 more hours? I wondered what excuses they'd come up with. We heard the occasional crackle on the radio but never a clear signal. Alice tried to contact them through several channels, but there was no response. The rock canyons blocked the radio waves too well. It seemed like we were in a dead zone where no electromagnetic radiation could pass through. Finally, we heard the roar of an engine. The SUV walked up the riverbed, then up the slope, and parked next to the Land Cruiser. When Ted and Carol came out, they looked dirty and unkempt. Hey guys, sorry it took so long. We had to pull tree trunks and debris from the trails. The winch couldn't cope with everything. We had to work hard, Ted explained. Ah, so here's the excuse, I thought. Hey Bobby, my beautiful wife said to me, why are you in the tent? Are you okay? I had a little accident, I said. Fell from a pile of rocks. Just damn clumsy of me. I think my ankle's broken, but that's it. Carol looked shocked. She ran to the tent and knelt beside me. Oh God, Bobby, are you okay? She held my head while asking the stupid question. If I were okay, I wouldn't be lying here, I thought to myself. Like I said, it's been better, but I think it's still relatively good, I smiled weakly. Ted went into combat medic mode, kneeling next to me. Broken, right? Let me check you out. Alice, could you get my first aid kit from the trunk? Yes, that's right. Carol, you're going to have to let go of his head. Ted examined me, checking my pupils, feeling my skin, skull, neck, taking my pulse, and measuring my blood pressure. Your vital signs look good, he said. Then he crawled into my tent and carefully felt my leg. Does it hurt? And this moon-shaped swelling. Okay, this really hurts. Yes, it's really broken. I can use a quick method, he said, pulling an air splint from his first aid kit. He wrapped it around my swollen ankle and inflated it. Are you on painkillers? I nodded. That's all I can do right now. I can give you a Demerol injection if it hurts too much. Nothing looks life-threatening, but you need an x-ray soon. I want to make sure you don't go into shock. Carol interrupted. What are we going to do now, Ted? Are you going to try and tow us, or just take him to the doctor or what? I intervened. Look, I can't walk, but I can crawl, and the rest of me is still working. You can push me under the Land Cruiser, and I can bolt on the new Spider. After that, I don't know. I think I need to position myself in the back seat so I can lie down with my leg raised and fixed. Alice, you're a good driver. Better than Carol off-road, right? 3 people helped me slide under the car, and I quickly replaced the crosspiece. I was surprised when Carol told Ted and Alice to walk for a few minutes. She climbed in next to me and hugged me on the side where I had no injury. Oh Bobby, are you okay for real? No nonsense. She looked and sounded genuinely worried. Did this woman really intend to betray me as I read in her notes and letters? I knew she could play and manipulate very well. Was she faking it now? It seemed like everything looked real. As I already said, it's been better, I replied. I admit I was a little worried when those boulders moved out from under me. Oh, Bobby, I couldn't bear to lose you. I just couldn't. The rain was getting heavier as they carefully pulled me out from under the car and loaded me inside. The passenger seat was tilted forward, and half of the back seat was emptied and covered with unfolded sleeping bags. They laid me on my back, head first, with my feet on a pillow made from sleeping bags. Ted secured my leg to keep it still so I wouldn't move and aggravate my ankle. Is everyone ready? Carol's voice came over the radio. I pressed the microphone. Looks like we're ready here. Okay, let's go. Ted took over leadership. Alice kept a distance of about 20 yards or more. On the steeper slopes, the rain was now falling in a thick, dark downpour. I can't even see the road, Alice said. I couldn't see the surrounding area, just the unyielding sky, but I had to agree. I pressed the radio button again. Do you see anything? What does the road look like? Carol's voice crackled over the radio. We're around the bend, right in front of you. I think we're approaching a side channel. And then the radio went off. I heard a roar, followed by a blow, and then another roar. Stop! I shouted. Alice slowed from a crawling speed to a complete stop. I pressed the radio button again. Carol, are you there? Carol, answer me. Nothing. Alice pressed the handbrake and jumped out of the door. She returned 8 seconds later, looking scared. Hold on, she screamed. I clung tightly to the back of the seat beneath me as Alice stepped back, then walked up the side path to the stone slab, tilted upward at about 30 degrees. What? I tried to ask, but my voice was drowned out by a new roar behind us. Alice cried out loudly, heavily clinging to the steering wheel with both hands. She looked in the rearview mirror, then lowered her head and continued to sob. They're gone, she sobbed. Water, flash flood, the riverbeds behind us and below us are just cleared to the ground. They're no more. Her thin body was shaken by sobs. Oh, damn. What am I going to tell the kids? Are they not there? Are Ted and Carol gone? Oh, damn, our children. Carol's parents, they're nearby. My parents are dead, and Alice and Ted's parents are in another part of the country. And Ted and Carol had employees. Wait, why am I saying were? Why in the past tense? Am I assuming they're dead? Alice, how sure are you? I asked. Try the radio again. Maybe they managed to find a safe place. Try it, come on, she desperately tried to cling to hope. I pressed the radio button again. Nothing. And again, still nothing. The storm front passed, the rain stopped, and the sky cleared. That was all I could see from my lying position. Wait here, don't go anywhere, Alice ordered me uselessly. She put the handbrake on the car and jumped out into the cool air, leaving the door open. The key in the ignition continued to beep during the minutes that she was gone. The road below seems clear, she said when she returned. I'll try to get us down. I'll stop wherever it's safe and look for a signal. You can keep trying the walkie-talkie. So, you didn't see any traces of them? I asked. She shook her head gloomily. Alice led us slowly down the mountain. We saw and heard nothing about our companions. She stopped at our first overnight stop, where we had direct line of sight to a cell tower. Alice took out her Nokia and dialed 911. When the police arrive, we won't say anything about what Ted and Carol were up to, right? I asked. Alice looked worried. Right. Maybe you should erase the recycle bin in Carol's vehicle if you have time and hide the flash drives. We don't need endless investigations over the next few years. This is exactly what I was thinking. Fraud and theft were planned but not yet carried out. There's no need to scare the cops. The sun was only an hour above the western horizon when the first helicopter, carrying rangers from Joshua Tree National Park to our north, arrived. A few minutes later, a Navy evacuation helicopter landed from a base near the Salton Sea. Doctors quickly examined me and stated that I was alive but slightly in shock and hypothermic. I had atrial fibrillation, my heart was working intermittently. They quickly loaded me up and took me to Eisenhower Medical Center in Palm Springs. Despite her objections, Alice had to stay behind to deal with the Rangers, sheriff, and highway patrol helicopters that arrived shortly thereafter. By that time, I didn't know who felt worse, her or me. It was by far the worst Sunday I could remember. I watched the dusk deepen outside the window of the ward where I was under observation. They said I was in good condition for overnight observation, but they weren't particularly concerned about my reaction to the fracture. They were more concerned about my hypothermia, atrial fibrillation, and my heart. My mother had atrial fibrillation, so it must be genetic. The use of cell phones in the hospital was prohibited. I was very nervous, waiting for any news from Alice. The outside world darkened along with my mood. Feelings of guilt swarmed in my head. I imagined their deaths, saw mental pictures of them being crushed by a rockfall, but what happened was much worse. Even though it wasn't my fault and I had nothing to do with it, I still felt guilt mixed with pain, loss, loneliness, and emptiness. The world I knew was over, finished, sayonara. What would I have done and experienced if it had not ended like this? If Alice hadn't divorced, if depression hadn't set in, if Carol hadn't cheated with Ted, if they hadn't agreed to their plot, if Alice had not found out about their betrayal, and if we had not discovered their criminal plans? If only I had not fallen on a pile of stones so we wouldn't have tried to leave during the storm, if only we had gotten out of there unharmed, but with their plot still in limbo. If they were caught, with or without our help. If only they were still alive. If only. A quarrel broke out in the hospital corridor around 10 o'clock. The door to my room burst open, and Alice rushed in, overtaking two small Filipino nurses. "Call the damn security if you want, but you'd better bring some strong guys to get me out of here, because you're definitely going to need it," she said. She saw me and ran up. "Oh, damn, Bobby. Oh, damn." She hugged me with her dirty arms and pressed her sweaty face to mine. "Oh, Bobby." She finally let me go and stood up, our fingers intertwined. "Any news?" I asked. She nodded resignedly. They didn't have to do a big search operation. A highway patrol helicopter spotted them on the route. They found the remains of the Sequoia about 1.5 miles away from us, along a side channel. The car was completely destroyed, and so were Ted and Carol's bodies. She squeezed my hand so hard it hurt. "They're gone, Bobby," she cried, clinging to me. I hugged her shoulders, and we held each other, silent. A stern nurse, probably the head of the department, and 2 guards entered the room. "Look, we have a pretty flexible schedule for visits like this, but you really shouldn't treat my nurses like that, Miss Olson. You have 5 more minutes, then my guys will escort you out. Don't waste your time." The nurse left, and the guards remained. "I called everyone," Alice said. "Carol's parents will bring all the children here tomorrow. They wanted to charter a flight and fly in tonight, but I said no. My father, Ted's mother, and your sister will be home late tomorrow. What will you do tonight? I hope you're not going to sit by the bed," she teased. "Ha, you're not sick enough for this." "No," I replied. "I got a motel room down the street. I need to sleep, but I'll be here in the morning, and we'll figure out what's what. We're great friends, Alice. We are not soulmates, we're not a romantic couple." She nodded and squeezed my hand tightly. "And I really want us to remain friends, no matter what it takes." She nodded again. "Yes, I want to stay friends too. But maybe with privileges?" Her half-smile was timid. Now it was my turn to nod and smile. "Perhaps we'll get there." We experienced long, tearful meetings with our families. Our children recovered faster than our older relatives. Life went on. The Riverside County Medical Examiner correctly ruled the deaths of Theodore Olson and Carolina Orga as accidental. No one except Alice and I knew about their betrayal and conspiracy. We buried them at Forest Lawn and hid the flash drives just in case. Ted and Carol had insurance. The payments paid off our mortgage and left large college funds for our 4 daughters. Some of our efforts have landed on Mars, and some are heading to the far reaches of the solar system. We were proud of our achievements. Ted and Carol's companies were taken over by their deputies and are running just fine without their executives. Alice and I are half owners, and the income is comfortable. We decided that we were truly friends, with benefits and something more. The Ortegas moved into the Olsons' house next door, and I moved into Alice's bedroom. We only needed to rearrange some furniture. Our status as friends with benefits only lasted a few months. We got married on Halloween Day in a charming and spooky Gothic room near the Southwestern Museum. The ceremony was in costumes. We were bright. "Hey, best friend, what now?" she teased, twitching her nose. "Well, next time, you'll be the showgirl and I'll be the fifth place. How do you like it?" "What, this again?" I asked, amused. "Fine, if you insist. Or maybe we can play with pygmies and hyenas?" "Sure, why not?" I said, chuckling. I fell silent for a moment. "You know, it's funny." "Yes, I know. It's funny that we're here. We could never have expected it. We never thought it would turn out this way. I had no plans for you, honestly. I know you've always been a true gentleman, and I was always a hard-working mother, and we went our own ways. Do you think they thought we would be like this? Maybe that's why they went their own way. I love my Caroline to madness, and I still love her. I never thought of going anywhere without Ted, but they followed a different map. Maladjusted instructions. But how did they get to that page? I shook my head. What happened to divine justice? Alice put her fingers on my lips. You know better. They were careless, that's all. No magical payback, no karma, no fate. Bad luck follows carelessness. They were careless. End of story. My engineer-trained mind accepted this, but my old Californian mind, raised among missions, caballeros, and healers, was not so sure. I have a final word on the prickly pear cactus, also known as the Indian fig, Opuntia ficus indica. They grow in huge, thorny thickets and produce colorful flowers. The flowers vary in color depending on the variety and area, but can be green, yellow, orange, or red. Local varieties bloom only in the most intense sunlight. These summer flowers seem to glow like neon lights. They seem to glow like Carol's eyes did the last time I looked deeply into her face. I can never forget this. Thank you for listening to this story with us. Visit our channel and you will find more interesting videos. See you soon.